Welcome. It's 6:30 p.m. on the money, Verizon time. It is June 6, 2017. Call to order this regular meeting of the Laramie City Council. First item on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. Would you please rise and join me? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. City Clerk, can you do roll call, please?
Gabriel.
Here.
Hanson, absent. Henry.
Here.
McKinney.
Here.
Palikas.
Here.
Shumway.
Here.
Schuster.
Here.
Pierce.
Here.
Somerville.
Here.
That is 8 present and 1 absent, Your Honor.
Thank you. Next item on our agenda is proclamations, and we have several this evening. So the first proclamation, I'm going to turn it over to Council Member Gabriel for Bike to Work Week.
Thank you, Mayor. And whereas millions of Americans engage in cycling because it's a viable and environmentally sound form of transportation and an excellent form of physical fitness, and whereas Bike to Work Week helps to increase public awareness for bicycling, educate the community about the benefits of cycling for transportation purposes, and encourages people to try bicycling commuting, and whereas there is a need to promote alternative forms of transportation such as walking and bicycling in order to reduce pollution, reduce America's dependence on fossil fuels, and improve the health and well-being of all people. And whereas increasing the number of bicycling lanes, paths, storage facilities, and traffic calming measures will help the city ease automobile traffic congestion and encourage a healthy lifestyle for residents. Now, therefore be it resolved that the week of June 19th through the 23rd, 2017, is hereby designated as Bike to Work Week. In the city of Laramie, Wyoming, the city of Laramie furthermore encourages all citizens to recognize the importance of sharing our streets and highways with cyclists. Charles, would you like to come forward?
Honorable Mayor and Councilor Gabriel, actually we do have a person here that's going to receive this proclamation. It's Lisa Cameron. She is with Blue Federal Credit Union. She is actually going to talk about some of the events that they host in partnership with our local bicycle facility shops. So we have the 3 shops in town. They are actually making more of an event this year than they usually do. With that, I'll hand it over to Lisa.
Great.
Welcome, Lisa.
Thank you. So like you said, the week of June 19th through the 23rd is Bike to Work Week. We have our events being held June 19th through the 21st, where people can stop by any of the bike shops in Laramie, Blue Federal Credit Union, or Ivinson Memorial Hospital to pick up a punch card. We're doing a little bit of a poker rally thing. So you can go by, get those punched at any of those locations as long as you ride your bike there. And at our event on the 21st that evening, if you do bring your punch card with all the punches, you will be entered into drawings. Wednesday, June 21st from 6:30 a.m. until 8:30 a.m. If you ride your bike down to the First Street Plaza, there will be a free continental breakfast for anyone that rides their bike. And then that same night from 4 p.m. until 7 p.m., we will have our Bike Home from Work event at the First Street Plaza. There will be live music, giveaways, and anyone that rides their bike will get a free brat and a free beer from Cold Creek Tap. Thank you.
Very nice. That's wonderful.
The mayor has signed it. There you go.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. So our next proclamation is going to be for Arbor Day. Whereas in 1872, J. Sterling Morton proposed to the Nebraska Board of Agriculture that a special day be set aside for the planting of trees, and this holiday, called Arbor Day, was first observed with the planting of more than 1 million trees in Nebraska. And whereas the planting of trees is a vital step in developing civic pride and a sense of community, and whereas trees provide an abundance of environmental and aesthetic advantages to citizens and wildlife wherever they are found, and whereas the state of Wyoming has designated the last Monday in April as the State Arbor Day, and communities in Wyoming can designate their own Arbor Day based on the climatic conditions of the community, and whereas the governing body for the city of Laramie desires to participate in the annual celebration of Arbor Day, And whereas the City of Laramie has celebrated Arbor Day and the annual community tree sale beginning in 1984, and that this year, in 2017, will be the 34th anniversary of Laramie's Arbor Day celebration. And whereas, in addition to the 80 trees that will be available for sale at wholesale cost, one per household to promote our urban forest, a tree planting demonstration will be conducted in the Ice and Event Center parking lot landscape. So now therefore, we the City Council of the City of Laramie do hereby proclaim June 10th, 2017 as Laramie's Arbor Day. We urge residents of Laramie on this day to plant trees and to support our city's community forestry program. And I believe we have Randy Overstreet, our city arborist, here. Did you have any words about our upcoming tree sale? And
Yes, Honorable Mayor and City Council. Tree sale is this Saturday. It officially starts at 8 o'clock, but people arrive very early to get in line. Last year, 80 trees were sold within an hour. And hopefully we'll have that again happen this year.
sounds wonderful. So come early, right? Thank you very much for all your work on our community urban forest.
Okay, thank you, Mayor.
Thanks, Ricky. Please.
Just like you said, it's first come, first served, so if somebody's interested in this, the line will be just like getting concert tickets where you see people camp out and everything. Be early or you will not get a tree.
Fair enough. All right, our next proclamation is for our Curmudgeon Society here. Whereas a group of 11 semi-retired gentlemen, known as the High Plains Curmudgeon Society, approached the City of Laramie for the 8th consecutive year about community service projects and volunteering their skills, knowledge, and labor for the Parks and Recreation Department. And whereas the Parks and Recreation Department developed a list of community service projects and needs that staff would like to complete, but due to time and budget constraints had not been completed. And whereas the High Plains Curmudgeon Society worked a minimum of 1 day each week from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. from January to the end of May for more than 1,000 hours of volunteer community service completing the projects. And whereas the community service projects completed by the High Plains Curmudgeon Society included wall protection at the Ice and Event Center, planning and installing storage solutions at the Laramie Community Recreation Center, planning and installing stairs that safely traverse the slide inside the leisure pool at the Laramie Community Recreation Center, and the design and construction of the first dog agility course items to be located at the Aragon Dog Park. Now, therefore, we, the City Council of the City of Laramie, do hereby proclaim our sincere thanks to the members of the High Plains Curmudgeon Society. Clayne Phillips, Michael Markham, Patrick Parker, Lowell Bangarter, William Hepworth, Donald Gleaves, Donald Saltman, John Duvall, Thomas Howe, Chip Annenson, and George Engen for their estimated 1,000 hours of volunteer community service at the Recreation Center, Ice and Event Center, and City Park buildings. Can we have some members of our Curmudgeon Society come forward? Director Feaser.
Honorable Mayor, through you. The Curmudgeon Society is a fantastic group of men that come out and help us out on a weekly basis and get some items done. I'm really proud of the accomplishments that they have this year. They actually worked one extra week because they felt bad they missed a week, and they worked one extra week. And I was out there while we were finishing up the dog agility courses and painting garbage cans. And we're just really blessed to have this group that works for us on an annual basis, helps us complete the projects. We did have one name not on there. I don't believe you were on there, were you, Bruce?
Excuse me now.
Was Bruce Bedell on the
He's not.
list? So we may have to get a corrected
We'll get you a corrected
proclamation.
proclamation.
Bruce was not on there.
group for a few months.
So, but two of the members are here, so I'll let them, if you guys have anything you want to say.
I'm sorry, but the rest of us aren't here, Mayor.
But we warn you guys out. 1,000 hours of community service, that's a lot.
I'll let you guys go up there.
Well,
Accept the proclamation.
thank you guys very much for everything that you do for the City of Laramie.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Was that right? Yeah.
And our final proclamation is to honor our Laramie Animal Welfare Society as the 2017 Laramie Community Hero. Whereas Laramie Municipal Government works extensively with community partner agencies and individuals to continually improve the community, And whereas the Laramie Animal Welfare Society is a nonprofit organization that assists the municipality-oriented animal shelter in promoting responsible pet ownership. And whereas the Laramie Animal Welfare Society supports the mission of the city's animal shelter by assisting pet owners with spay and neuter expenses, as well as veterinary care for adoptable animals. And whereas the Laramie Animal Welfare Society engages in fundraising to supplement equipment and training at the city animal shelter, including behavior modification training for hard-to-place animals, HEPA air purification equipment for the cat room, and optimally sized cage enclosures. And whereas, in recognition of their tremendous support, the Laramie Animal Welfare Society has provided to the municipal animal shelter, the city recently nominated the society for a Community Hero Award from the Wyoming Association of Municipalities. And whereas the Animal Welfare Society was named a community hero and recognized at the annual meeting of the Wyoming Association of Municipalities on June 1st, 2017, for its decades-long partnership with the city of Laramie. Now, therefore, I, Andy Somerville, Mayor and President of the City Council, on behalf of the governing body of the City of Laramie, do hereby proclaim the Laramie Animal Welfare Society is the 2017 Laramie Community Hero for the Society's invaluable partnership with the city in humane operation of the animal shelter and for their good works and deeds, including educational programs, fundraising, and public outreach since 1998. City Manager, would you like to add to that?
Mayor, I just wanted to let you know that Amy Williamson is here. She's the president of the Animal Welfare Society to receive the proclamation. I also wanted to mention, the proclamation focuses on the partnership between municipal government and the Animal Welfare Society, but I thought I'd mention outside of the animal shelter, LAWS also provides adoption assistance to pet owners, rehoming their pets, low-cost microchipping events. They host a compassionate care program that temporarily houses and cares for animals when a person or family have an emergency. And also they oversee a trap, neuter, and return program for the feral cat colony in the city. So they do things beyond their partnership with the city, and we're so appreciative. Amy?
I was so fortunate to be able to go to Gillette to the annual conference this year and present. And I do believe that Ms. Williamson there promised everybody a free kitty. Do you have any kitties left for anybody
Oh,
here?
yes.
Okay.
Don't worry about it. In March, boy kitties have only one thing on their little hairy minds, and girl kitties are not shy and retiring. And so beginning in late April and May, it rains kittens. So yes, we have plenty of kittens. And we also offer foster opportunities for those of you who wish to bring these little characters up and teach them to be good little kitty citizens. And we get these at the trap neuter return sites, the feral cat sites, which I need to respectfully correct the city manager. We don't do that in the city limits. It's not legal for us to do that in the city limits, although we're hoping to engage in some in-depth lobbying and other work to convince you all that this is not a health hazard, and that in fact it lessens health hazards by making sure that those kitties are vaccinated for distemper and rabies before they go back out to where they live. They're spayed and neutered, they can't breed. So yes, we do those things, and we love doing them. We love having volunteers come help us. And our website is laramieanimals.org, where we have convenient applications to either foster or volunteer or adopt a kitten. Thank you all very much. We really do appreciate it. We all love doing what we do, and we could not do it without the tremendous cooperation of hundreds of people in Laramie. We have probably adopted out 350 kittens by now over a 2.5-year period. And TNR at about 160 adults, which hopefully is cutting down on the number of strays. So thank you very much. We do appreciate receiving this award and the wonderful WHAM recognition.
I have to say, during the banquet where we recognize our community heroes, everybody talks about how much these community partnerships are really the bedrock of a lot of the communities, especially when you have budget constraints and other things. And Laramie is certainly not the exception. I think Laramie exceeds a lot of other areas in our community partners, and this is certainly one very fine shining example. of community citizens coming together to do what the city doesn't have the resources to do. So we truly appreciate it.
Well, that's what we're here for. Thank you very much, all of you.
And where can I pick up my kitten?
Just give me a buzz.
Okay, sounds good.
We have all sizes, colors, combinations. And if you take one kitten, you get a second kitten free.
I didn't get one free.
All right, so our next item on the agenda is announcements. City staff, do we have any announcements?
No announcements, Mayor.
Do we have any disclosures by any council members on items for this evening? Okay, seeing none. So we will move to item number 6, and I will turn it over to the vice mayor.
Okay, we have one change this evening, so I move that the following change to the agenda be approved. We are taking regular agenda item number 15 and moving it to item 11A.
Second.
Second by Councilor Henry. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. Vice Mayor.
I move that the agenda be set as changed.
Second.
Second by Councilor Shumway. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Vice Mayor.
Okay, I move that the consent agenda be approved and that each specific action on the consent agenda be approved as indicated.
Second. Second by Councilor Henry. City Clerk, could you do roll call, please?
Gabriel.
Yes.
Hanson, absent. Henry.
Yes.
McKinney.
Yes.
Blikus.
Yes.
Shumway.
Yes.
Schuster.
Yes.
Pierce.
Yes.
Somerville.
Yes.
That's 9 yeses, or excuse me, 8 yeses, 0 nos, and 1 absent, Your Honor.
Thank you. That motion carries. All right, moving on to the regular agenda. Item number 10, Councilor Schuster.
Thank you. The title of this is the award of a bid for the Grand Avenue Water Line Replacement Project. I move to award the bid for the Grand Avenue Water Line Project to Mechanical Systems, Inc., Cheyenne, Wyoming, in the amount of $1,116,617, along with the contingency of $111,662, for a total amount of $1,228,279 to approve the contract and authorize the mayor and clerk to sign.
Second.
Second by the Vice Mayor. Director Smith.
Your Honor, the mayor and members of council, good evening. We ask that you award the bid for the Grand Avenue Waterline Project. It's a project where we will extend a 30-inch water main and a 16-inch water main from 15th westerly to 13th, and it's an extension of the waterline project that was completed a couple of years ago as part of the YDOT improvement project on Grand Avenue. The project also includes some lateral tie-ins at 13th, 14th, and 15th Street. So we'll extend those water lines outside the right-of-way of Grand Avenue so that YDOT in a couple of years can come in and overlay Grand Avenue, and we won't have to tear it up when we extend those various water lines. As per the city's purchasing policies, the project was placed out for bid and advertised. Bids were opened on May 23rd. We had 2 bidders. Mechanical Systems, Inc. Was low at $1,116,617. I do want to point out that we're using drinking water state revolving fund loan monies for this, along with the $550,000 cash match from the city. And what's nice about the loan funding is we received principal forgiveness in the amount of $672,813. So total budget is $2.2 million, so it's well within budget, so we're pretty anxious to get started here. We have planned a pre-construction meeting later this week, assuming you approve the contract. We're going to push hard to complete that this summer before UW comes back to class in late August. So with that, I'd be glad to answer any questions.
Questions for Director Smith? Councilor Schuster?
The biggest one, I think it's kind of comical. We will be closing 15th and Grand, correct?
Yes, sir, that's correct, for a short period of time.
That'll throw the whole city into a tizzy. It will.
Your Honor,
Please.
the Mayor, you may recall at the work session with UW, we had talked about this specific issue and intent to close Grand Avenue and 15th out of necessity for this project, but we're going to take advantage of that opportunity and do some traffic counts to see where traffic patterns fall from there. So, thanks for the reminder.
One other one, we're gonna try to open up, probably before the project's done, we're gonna try to get 15th and Grand open back up before the project's completed even, or?
Your Honor, the Mayor and Councilmember Schuster, we will start at 15th, we'll take care of that work, and then we'll move westerly, and once we're able to get out of that intersection, it'll open back up, so.
Okay, thank you very much.
Any other questions for Director Smith? Okay,
Yep.
thank you. Any public comment on this item? Okay. Comments or discussion from council members on this? No? City Clerk, can you do roll call, please?
Schuster,
Yes.
Shumway,
Yes.
McKinney,
Yes.
Gabriel,
Yes.
Hanson, absent Henry,
Yes.
Lekus,
Yes.
Pierce,
Yes.
Somerville.
Yes,
That is 8 yeses, 0 nos, and 1 absent, Your Honor.
thank you. That motion carries. On to item number 11, Counselor Schuster.
And then right in that same area. The title of this one is Amendment to the Professional Services Agreement for the Grand Avenue Water Line Project. I move to approve the amendment to the Grand Avenue Water Line Replacement Project Professional Services Agreement with Tri-Hydro Corporation to conduct construction services for the total amendment of $73,866 for a total contract amendment or amount not to exceed $168,818 and authorize the mayor and clerk to sign.
Second.
Second by Counselor Shumway. Director Smith.
Your Honor, the Mayor and members of council, this is attendant to the previous item. We often do this with projects where we have grants and loans. We retain the design consultant to help us manage the construction of the project. The grants and loans come with it a lot of requirements that have to be met, documentation and paperwork. I mentioned earlier the Grand Avenue project that was completed a couple years ago with, in cooperation with YDOT. The documentation on our end literally was a stack of papers that thick. So it really helps when we have the design consultant on board that helps us with the loan requirements such as DBE documentation. They have to do interviews with employees to make sure that they have Davis-Bacon wages and so on and so forth. So that's the purpose of this amendment, and we do it at the time after the project's designed and we're ready to bid or award the project so that we understand the full scope of the project. You may recall a few years ago, we had to come back and ask for a large change order because this process took place at the beginning of the design as opposed to the end of it. So with that, I'd be glad to answer any questions.
Questions for Director Smith? Okay, I see
Thank you.
none. Thank you. Any comments from the public on this item? Okay. Comments or discussion from council on this item? None? City Clerk, can you do roll call, please?
Schuster,
Yes.
Gabriel,
Yes.
Henry,
Yes.
McKinney,
Yes.
Shumway,
Yes.
Lekus,
Yes.
Hanson, absent Pierce,
Yes.
Somerville.
Yes.
That is 8 yeses, 0 nos, and 1 absent, Your Honor.
Thank you. That motion carries. Moving on to item 11A, which was our previous 15. Counselor Gabriel.
Thank you, Mayor. This is a bid award, and I would move that the council award the bid for the Laramie City Hall Annex Roof and Cornice Project to Gem City Roofing, Inc. of Laramie, Wyoming, and the amount not to exceed $155,910, and reserve $15,591 for potential project contingencies, along with approving the standard form of agreement between owner and contractor, AIA document A101-2007, for a total amount not to exceed $171,501, and authorize the mayor and city clerk to sign.
Second.
Second by Counselor Schuster. Director Feaser.
Honorable Mayor, City Council, this is the approval of the repairs to the roof. It doesn't just include the roof, we are also picking up the alternates, which are the front door painting, the cornice repair that's not attached to the roof, the north cornice not attached to the roof, and also painting all the windows. We figured it would be best if we consolidated our mobilization and took advantage of having a painter on site and making sure that we had that building spruced up. Even with that, we're very close to the engineer's estimate of $150,000 at 155,910. And the additional amount is in case we find any structural damage once we remove the clay tiles that needs to be repaired. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Questions for Director Feaser on this item? Counselor Gabriel?
Yes, thank you. Todd, no concrete work or step work out in front?
Honorable Mayor, through you, we actually are hoping to do that under a separate bid. Since we're far enough under the budget and we had anticipated having some structural issues that we found are non-existent, we simply are hoping to be able to turn that into repairing the concrete entrance and repointing the steps and making some corrective actions on the front of the facility. Staff is currently working on quotes for those projects.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Director Feaser? Okay, thank you. Any public comment on this item? Okay. Council comment? Counselor Schuster?
This is a beautiful older building. When my parents moved me to town here when I was a whopping 10 years old, this was our public library. And it's a really cool building that needs to be preserved. Thank you.
Counselor Henry?
I was going to echo those sentiments that the building it's in bad disrepair and it needs to have those cornices fixed, and I'm very happy that we're finally getting this done. It's been years in the making, so thank you so much for heading up the project.
Any other comments or discussion from council? Okay. City Clerk, can you do roll call, please?
Gabriel.
Yes.
Hanson, absent. Henry.
Yes.
McKinney.
Yes.
Polikis.
Yes.
Shumway.
Yes.
Schuster.
Yes.
Pierce.
Yes.
Somerville.
Yes.
That's 8 yeses, 0 nos, and 1 absent, Your Honor.
Thank you, that motion carries. So before we go on to item number 12, I'm going to call a 10-minute recess. I understand we need to get some documents in line before we go to the third reading. So we are recessed for 10 minutes. Thank you. Getting back to order, it is 7:13. So we are on item number 12. Be Counselor Schuster.
Thank you. Title of this is Original Ordinance Number 1967, amending Title 5 of the Laramie Municipal Code 5.08, Special Malt Beverage Permits, and 5.09, Alcohol Beverage to define special malt beverage permit requirements, align municipal code with state statute, adjust fees, make clarifications, and clean up the code. I move that the council approve Original Ordinance Number 1967, amending Title V of the Laramie Municipal Code 5.08, Special Malt Beverage Permits, and 5.09, Alcohol Beverage to define special malt beverage permit requirements, align municipal code with state statute, adjust fees, make clarifications, and clean up the code on the third and final reading, and authorize the mayor and city clerk to sign.
Second.
Second by Counselor McKinney. City Clerk.
Thank you, Your Honor. Council, again, I do apologize for that little recess that we had to take. I just want to be sure that we had attachment A exactly right. I just had a couple titles that had some grammatical changes that need to be made, so there was nothing of any substance that changed, I promise you. Let me just clarify a couple things that did change from second reading to third. We did remove the definition of commercial kitchen. As you probably noticed, it was no longer needed since you made the amendment at the last meeting to remove that ability of minors to be in establishments that have the majority of their sales from alcohol with a commercial kitchen. We no longer need that definition. The one item, if you want to look at It is on page 12 of your attachment A. We clarified, number 5 is is where we talked about the majority of food sales versus alcohol. The establishment is operating a restaurant. We took out the phrase with a commercial kitchen. It wasn't necessary. So that was the only other place that we even had it referenced. So for simplicity's sake, as it wasn't needed, we just got rid of that piece of drama that was causing us drama. So that, and then also a lot of the other changes we made were just some grammatical and layout clarifications. The city attorney and I worked on making things read a little bit better, but that was the only item of substance beyond your amendments that you made at last reading that have changed. A reminder again that we did pull out the fees into a resolution for your next item to talk about, so there are no fees on this third reading. And then I do want to clarify, I sent an email today in response to a club's question regarding minors in the limited retail establishments, which is our clubs. There are no changes happening to what the clubs can do, no further restrictions on them. Clubs will still be able to have minors in there. If you look at page 12, which is 5-09-615, A1, there's an exception. The licensee is operating under a limited retail license, which is a club, a resort license, or a golf license. Those are all allowed to have minors in the entire establishment, including what used to be their bar areas. So there's actually more square footage open up to all 3 of those license types automatically within this version of your ordinance. Beyond that, I will take any questions that you have.
Questions for City Clerk on third reading here. Counselor Schuster.
I hate to do this to you, but I'm probably gonna propose amendment tonight.
That's fine.
And on this, what we have is we have some of the establishments that do have commercial kitchens, that their sales of alcohol is more than 50%. Now, one of the things one of the bar owners presented to me is they must have a state license permit to sell food. And they come in and they inspect the range hood and all their cooking facilities and verify, just like our health inspector does, that they meet all of the state requirements to be able to serve food. So it's not somebody that's plopping something into a microwave or anything like that. They are inspected as just like the health inspector by a state, and I even showed it to Janine that they come up with a certificate that is presented to them every year to have the right to serve food. So it's not a commercial kitchen inspection or anything else. This is a permit written and given by the state of Wyoming that says you are authorized to fix and serve food to the public. So this particular establishment would no longer be able to allow to have minors in there, and they do just like, I'm going to use another one, Lovejoy's, just like that. They remove all minors at a certain hour and become a bar. So do they have the separation wall like some of the bars have? No, they don't. They have a tiled area and a wooden floor area, and minors are not allowed in the tile area or at the bar. They are only allowed to sit at tables. So I would like to see that this business still have the right to do this business for families. Are they going to allow a 15-year-old come in and get a burger on their own? No. Are they going to allow a family in? Yes. So I will be making an amendment to try to go back to basically kind of what we have, but they must have to allow minors before the hours. What did we have in there? 8 o'clock?
8 o'clock.
That I would be making the amendment that as long as they have the state of Wyoming food catering permit license, that they would be allowed to have minors in there to the 8 o'clock time frame. So I was just kind of trying to explain this until I just dumped it on the city council without any notice at all. So if anybody has any comments on it, they can make it before I make an amendment.
City Clerk.
I just have,
I'm just wondering if we have any necessary
I-
clarifications for that.
I'm not sure what business he's talking about, so it's hard to respond to that one.
Okay.
It was under my understanding that we didn't have anybody who currently has minors that would not be able to have them
Right.
with the changes that you make.
That was my understanding as well.
I just have a point
Counselor
of order.
Plicus?
Aren't we making an amendment for the same thing we turned down last time?
Exactly.
City Attorney?
City Attorney?
Mayor, Counselor, I would say that in the last meeting, when we were given guidance to remove that and provide what you have in front of you, that was not by formal motion. It was instruction to staff, so I don't think that we're foreclosed from reopening that.
I agree.
City Attorney, I believe we did actually
It
do a
was a real
motion on that.
motion.
We did do a
Struck.
motion on that.
Then
That
I
was-
stand corrected, Your Honor.
Struck
So I guess the question is can we revisit that and put it back to what it was if we struck it out last meeting? What is the point of procedure on that?
A motion for reconsideration could be considered today.
Okay. Of that amendment. Counselor Schuster?
I don't want the definition we had before.
Okay.
That's
so
why
you
I'm
want a different
drastically changing it,
definition.
because the only definition we had before is if they had a range hood, then they could cater to minors. This one is an actual given permit by the state of Wyoming that says that this place has been inspected and approved to serve food to the public.
Well, on this point, I do have a lot of questions for the city clerk and city attorney before you put the amendment on the floor.
fine.
But are there any other questions on any other topics that we need to ask city staff before we get into our discussion?
I would like
Counselor
to know,
Shumway, please.
I'd like to know how many establishments you think would fall under this exemption? Just one?
I do not know. I know probably, if I'm gonna state this, a bar and grill would have to have the same state
No.
license, but no?
City clerk, please.
May I?
Yes.
Bar and Grill has to have a 60/40 food alcohol
Yeah, I know.
split. So yes, they have to have a state license, but they're going to meet that majority of food. So your bar and grill licenses will not be
I
affected
know,
in that.
I'm just saying this, this piece of paper that I'm saying qualifies them would be that, but I asked them, they said they did not meet the 60/40 split.
Who is it?
City clerk.
What was I going to say? I just got distracted. Anybody who even has a fry kitchen where they are frying oil is going to have a license
They'll
from
have
the
a state
state.
license.
So just so you understand the variety of food that could be served under that license and what other establishments might be open to that, as long as you understand the intention of what you're doing, it's totally a policy call. It is not my opinion whether or not, I'm not giving my opinion. I just want you to be aware that it's going to open up a large group of bars to do that. And just remind you that you do have that option to give an exception if there is one place that doesn't quite fit. You can give an exception for now. We can come back and look if there's multiple places, and if we want to come rewrite it in a few months, just put that on the table as something to
As an
consider.
option as well. Okay. Well, my intention was to kind of halt this conversation and see if there's any other questions we needed to get answered from city staff before we do this, on any other subjects besides Counselor Schuster's
Oh, on
proposed
any other?
amendment.
Oh,
Yeah, is
no.
there anything else that anybody has any questions on? Okay, I have one question, and that is regarding enforcement. I was asked by several people, if a business comes in and submits an application and says they get 55% of their sales from food to qualify in that category where the majority of their sales is from food to allow minors in their establishment, the penalties that I'm seeing right now under this ordinance, it's only a 25-point penalty on their license for lying on their application. Is that correct?
Yes, Your
Okay.
Honor, that is correct.
So could you clarify to me what is the action at 25 points? Because I don't believe that there was anything beyond a fine.
There is a $250 fine, and it is a cumulative point system. So if there's other violations, then other actions can take place. But there is nothing beyond a fine at the 25-point mark.
And what is the point mark in which even an initial suspension can take place? Is that 75 points?
I believe so. Let me look it up really quick for you.
This isn't gonna get any worse.
Sorry, that
That's
section
okay,
is
I
large.
apologize, I couldn't
That's
nail
all
it down
right.
either before the meeting.
Okay, so it is in, I'll give you a reference, so you can, anybody can look it up if they like. It is in section 5.09.800, and it is under H3, is where 75 points in 12 months shall have license suspended for not more than 3 days, and any cost for a hearing shall be paid to the city. And 100 points in a 12-month is not a suspension not more than 5 days.
Okay. So my next question to follow up to that is, so what, we're not specific in this ordinance on what documentation we're asking people to provide to prove that. And if I'm understanding, they're not actually required to provide upfront documentation. We're essentially going to ask them to sign an affidavit that says they swear under penalty of perjury or whatever that is, that they're over 50%. Is that correct as well?
Absolutely, Your Honor. It's the same process that the bar and grill and restaurant licenses have to abide by right now.
Okay.
They simply state and sign that this is what their percentages are. That is all that's required currently. But we did leave it vague so that staff could have the ability to request what was needed in a particular situation.
Okay. So if there was suspicion on a business, then we do have that ability in there to go and follow up with them.
Absolutely.
But if we do find that they have falsified their application, then we don't have really any strong remedy, is my understanding, other than giving them a 25-point fine.
At this point, you are correct.
Okay. All right, well, I will bring that up for discussion, under discussion. Any other questions for the city clerk? Counselor Shumway?
As I read this, now hours of operation are uniform for all licenses, including club licenses from 6 a.m. to 2 p.m. Is that correct?
2 a.m.
2 a.m., I mean, right.
2 p.m.
That would be very
It was
long.
close between 2 and 6.
Right.
City
So-
clerk?
Your Honor, Counselor Shumway, no, clubs still have the ability. We didn't actually make an official amendment last
I'll
time.
make an amendment for that.
Okay.
Next time.
Okay.
Next time, let me know and I'll make that amendment.
Okay. Any other questions for city clerk staff on this? Okay. We'll go to the public comments and then discussion here. Any further public comments on this ordinance on third reading for alcohol revisions? All right, seeing none, we'll go to council discussion. So, Counselor Schuster, you were first up with some suggested, so I'll go back to you. And let's have a little bit further discussion regarding your amendment, before you put it on
The
the floor.
amendment's not on the floor.
No, it's not. Is there any other questions that anybody wants to ask before it's on the floor?
Yeah.
Please, Counselor Henry?
Okay, so under 5.09.615, there are exceptions. And number 2, as Counselor McKinney pointed out, is the licensee applies for and obtains approval to allow persons under the age of 21 in the licensed premises on terms or conditions set by city council. So, to me, it's already in there, that one establishment could apply for an exception. And then, as I understand it, it is on their license until they remove it. So every time it comes before the annual renewal, it's on there and it gets approved. The exception.
City
Correct?
clerk?
That would be correct unless you make a change during your approval process.
I'll accept that if the rest of the council is good with that.
I'm good with it.
Counselor McKinney?
That's why I was asking about that. I was like, because it was already in there. I don't see why when they're applying for their license, that it's just not on their license. It states as such for them as who they can have in, what hours of operation that they could be.
That's fine, because if we're,
Are you okay with that, Counselor
yeah,
Schuster?
I'm okay if the council's okay with it. If we make it that simple for him, I think it's great.
All right,
Go by me, I think.
okay, then we'll move on to the next discussion. Who else had other items? Counselor Shumway, please.
As I read 5.09.425, hours of operation generally, it says all licenses shall be controlled by the following schedule of operating hours. Basically, it says 6 a.m. to 2 p.m. Now, it's my understanding there is an exception, because this is generally. And if the city attorney will clarify that clubs may stay open 24 hours, then I'll make an amendment.
City clerk or city attorney?
Trying to figure out which section it is.
It's 5.09.425.
Page 9.
Yeah, page 9.
I think they're looking for the club exception.
There is no club exception in this. It says all licenses.
May I?
Please, city clerk, sorry.
If you look at your full ordinance, so you only have sections that are changing.
Okay.
And in section 5.09.430,
Okay.
the title is Hours of Operations Clubs Exempt.
Okay.
And it states, clubs holding liquor license shall be exempt from the hours of operations specified in section 5.09.425 herein.
Okay.
So you don't have it in your attachment, but it is in your
And
ordinance.
you're right, and we're just looking at the changes. So, Your Honor, I'd like to make an amendment.
Please.
And before I do that, I'll say this. We already have built into our system that there can be exceptions for 24-hour operation. They can have at least 4. Everyone can have at least 4. They just have to designate when that's going to be for like New Year's, Jubilee days, et cetera. But I would like to make a motion that all licenses, including club licenses, would go by the hours of operations of 6 a.m. to 2 p.m.
How about 2 a.m.?
2 a.m., I'm sorry. I keep saying, okay.
I will second that.
Second by Counselor Gabriel. City clerk.
May I make a clarification to your motion that will be a little cleaner? If you would not mind changing your motion to read, to remove section 5.09.430, hours of operation clubs exempt, then that entire section will just go away, and they will just fall under .425.
So my motion then is to remove section 5.09.43 hours of operations clubs exempt from our
Municipal code.
municipal code.
Does the second
Second.
concur? All right, second by
Do.
Counselor Gabriel on that amendment. Discussion on the amendment. Counselor
I will
Schilling.
say this, I've talked to the state liquor commission, I've also talked to our city clerk. They don't see any reasons to have this for the city of Laramie, and they said it's up to us. So far, no one has come forward and said that's going to be a problem for them, so obviously we can make changes if it does create huge heartburn. I don't think it will, so I'm confident that we can go forward with this and that it's not going to make a major difference in operation for the clubs that we have here in town.
Counselor Schuster.
I talked to the club that I belong to, and I jokingly asked them if they knew what their hours of operation was. And they thought it was just like bars, and I said, really? So they didn't even know they could have stayed open that late. And they said they have no problem on that because unless there's a very specific event on, they don't stay open past 10 o'clock at night, so.
And they can,
And they could stay open until 2, but they do not.
Okay.
So, unless there's a wedding or something, that's the only time I've ever seen there.
They get exceptions.
Yeah.
Any other discussion on this amendment?
So,
Vice Mayor.
so correct me if I'm wrong. The state, when they changed the rules, basically said that
No operation hours.
no operating hours, right?
Correct.
That's what the state originally said. So generally, we can say that we are being more restrictive than the state in the hours of operation, generally.
True.
Okay. Thanks.
No problem. Counselor Schuster.
Just like what Joe said, I contacted some people in some other communities. They're kind of watching to see what happens here. We're the first one to do this. No other city in the state of Wyoming is asked to do this. Now, you said we're more restrictive than the state. I guess we are, but are we more restrictive than what it was last year? No. We're actually being less restrictive than what it was last year. I don't want this rumor started again that the city of Laramie is clamping down on alcohol and we're more restrictive than what we were. We are not. We are trying to keep it sensible in what it was before.
So, Counselor Schuster, I do want to do a clarification. That is, there are several cities and towns in Wyoming that are working on this.
Correct.
We're just further ahead than anybody else.
Yeah, they're watching us to see what happens, but yes, they said, well,
Okay.
we're thinking about it, but we haven't started anything yet.
Counselor Gabriel.
And this is one item that we discussed a couple of weeks ago during the public hearing, and we all wanted to see what the other club owners had to say about it. I didn't hear any kind of comment. As Counselor Schuster has talked about, a lot of these people really didn't realize they had that extra convenience of being open 24. So talking with Joe earlier before the meeting, it just doesn't make any sense to have different hours for club owners as opposed to the retail people, and I think it's the best way to go.
Any other discussion on this amendment? City Clerk, can you do roll call on the amendment, please?
Shumway,
Yes.
Polikis,
Yes.
McKinney,
Yes.
Henry,
No.
Hanson, absent, Gabriel,
Yes.
Schuster,
Yes.
Pierce,
No.
Somerville.
Yes.
So that is 6 yeses, 2 noes, and 1 absent, Your Honor.
Thank you. That amendment carries. All right. Any other amendments? So I will bring back up for discussion then, what I would ask the council to consider is to amend the point schedule. So right now, in our point schedule, which is on pages 13 and 14 in your packet that you have available. So right now, we're setting up a system where we're asking the businesses to be honest with us and sign and say that they're being honest. And I think that 99.9% of them are gonna do that. But I think we've seen examples in the past of businesses that have not done that or are riding the line. What I'm concerned about right now, and what was brought to my attention this week, was that if they are found to have lied about whether they have more than 50% alcohol, that's a pretty big change. They can either have minors in their establishment or they can't. So that's a pretty big thing. And if they're found to have, if we become suspicious and the city requests documentation and goes through this process and the city feels that they have proof that they have falsified that application, one way or the other, for whatever reason, the only thing that we have right now in our code is to give them a 25-point fine against their license. It's a $250 fine and that's it. It's equivalent to, if you look down your point schedule, 25 points, you get 25 points for sales or dispensing after hours, or failure to check ID of an underage person, refusal to permit entry or inspection, all of those things. I would recommend to council, my personal opinion is that we need to make a stronger deterrent, and we need to, put a big price tag on not being honest on your application. So I think that it would be appropriate to move item 1, making a false statement on a liquor license or temporary liquor permit application, to a 75 or 100-point penalty right out of the gate. If it was 75, that would be, could be a 3-day suspension, and I believe it's remind me again, you just told me the fine, City Clerk. Was it $750 for 75 points?
It does not say specifically. For 50 points, it's a $500 fine.
I think
It just simply says for 75 points, it's a suspension of not more than 3 days, and the
Okay.
cost of the hearing.
Okay, so 75 points is a 3-day suspension, or 100 points is the 5-day suspension. So I would like council to discuss that and see if there's any will amongst council to create that deterrent. The other thing we could do is put a separate, we could add to the point schedule that the point system, and specifically make a category for lying about percentage of alcohol sales if you want to be very specific about it, and designate a fine and a points value for that. But there was several community members that I talked to this last week that are very concerned about that, because there's no deterrent. And literally, you can lie and get your 25-point fine or 25 points against your license, pay your $250 fine, and move on. There's no risk to your license for lying to the city. Councilor Shumway.
Well, I think we're aware of some false statements that have been made regarding this. However, that's not the only false statement that they can make on an application or a temporary permit application. I would rather have it move over to a separate category where it's, where it's specifies that they, about food sales. One thing, it's going to be very expensive for the city to go through that audit to determine this, because it's going to be hard for us to do that. And once we do, then we can suspend their license until they come into compliance, or make them switch over to retail license or whatever is necessary. But I think that the penalty of having their license suspended after an audit is probably enough of a penalty for them, if they pay the $250 fine. It's a huge process. It's not something easy where we can determine that their food sales and liquor sales, if they're, not being forthright, because they're gonna, we had someone come present to us information that I think was not accurate. And it's hard for us to do that without going through a complete audit of all that, and that's not what we're in the business of doing. So it's going to be hard to determine, and I don't know how much traction we would get by doing this. It's nice to have that something that they are very conscious about, so I don't know which direction we need to go.
Counselor Schuster and then Counselor Palikas.
Okay, and this is just what, I had a bar owner that wanted to be completely truthful and say that, no, I wouldn't qualify for that, but I would like to be able to sell food to families. So I agree with this. I would like a separate category, because I think that if we don't, there can be 100 different false statements on the license, intentional or unintentional, that I'd rather see that if it's something's not a huge false statement, they've made an address mistake or something like that, and it made it all the way through the system. I've seen things, little things like that happen that, fine, they get dinged for this, but I don't think the food sales versus alcohol sales is equivalent to this. So, yes, I'd like to see a separate category. If we deem it 75 points and a $750 fine, so be it. But I think it should be a whole new category.
Okay, Counselor Palikas.
Yes, Honorable Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that we add to attachment A category that would state false statements, false statements on an application for percentage of alcohol sales be assessed a value of 100 points.
Is there a second for that
Second.
motion? Second by Counselor Schuster.
City Attorney,
City Attorney, please.
did I,
Mayor,
can I
Councilor,
clean that up?
I just want to make sure what we're amending and where.
Well, it's just an addition.
I would,
The very last page,
Counselor
I
Palikas,
think.
can I help you clarify?
Please help me out.
So that would be section 5.09.800, item A, and I believe that would be adding item number 17 with that language.
Which would be false statements with regards to
Making
minors,
false statements.
with regards to minors in their establishment.
And it'd be Laramie Municipal Code 5.09.125.
125. Thank you, Counselor Schuster. Please, Counselor Palikas.
Did I get a second on that?
Yes, you did, Counselor Schuster.
I'd like to add to it, the reason I made it 100 points versus 75 points, if I understand it right, 100 points is 5 days. Number one, I want it to be a steep penalty, and I think we have to keep in mind, our challenge would be to prove something like this is going to be expensive, because you're going to have to hire an auditor and so forth and so on. So if we have to go through that trouble, I think a 5-day suspension of a license is a reasonable penalty to pay. I don't expect us to be using this. I think it'll be steep enough, as the mayor suggested, that the average not average, almost all your establishments, if not all, will say, this is not worth playing with. I'm going to go by the book.
Vice Mayor.
So do we know what we would consider the appropriate documents for them to bring in? And we audit so we're gonna go in and audit a private enterprise's books? Is that what we are attempting to do?
City Clerk, if you could also clarify what the state of Wyoming requires in the way of an audit right now, as well as maybe answer that.
Your Honor, Counselor Pierce, currently establishments that have a percentage requirement have to prove that if they're asked to do so. You have currently in municipal code and in state statute. I don't have the reference with me. I wasn't I didn't look that up prior, but it does already exist, that you are allowed to do that. Right now, the verbiage says to allow a determination of the percentage of a licensee's revenue attributable to sale of food and sale of alcoholic or malt beverages. The licensee shall provide to city manager and city manager's designee such documents or other proof of sales as city manager or city manager designee may request. That's the current addition to your ordinance that we have proposed to you. That is in 5.09.615. With your exceptions, but it is already in other areas of your municipal code where the city manager can require sales tax documents and things like that to help determine that. The process for the liquor division to go through an audit is quite comprehensive, and it often takes them several months to go through if the liquor division is going to do an audit. I have not been through one with them, so I'm not sure exactly what it is, but through conversations with them, I know it is quite an extensive process. Does that answer your question?
I believe so. I just wanted to verify what I believe to be the case, and that is anybody that's applied for a liquor license that has that food requirement already has already said, yes, so we know that we could be audited at some point in time. That's all I was verifying. Okay. Councilor Schuster.
And that's basically what I was gonna say. This is a bar and grill and a restaurant license that's been going on for 20 years, 25 years. I mean, this has always been that way, that if they are found to be in violation or challenged to be in violation, and it's very rare to see this, because most of your restaurant / liquor license holders have a full-blown restaurant, and they're probably up there in the 85% food with 15% alcohol. So I mean, you can name them all here in town. It's pretty easy. So we're talking about a place that's really iffy. So I'm in complete favor of this, because this has been this way for 25 years.
Councilor Shumway.
Question I have is, with these restaurant and bar and grill licenses, let's suppose they come in violation of this and they get the 100-point violation and the 5-day suspension. Let's suppose they're 70% alcohol and 30% food. They're going to reopen and they're going to be right back in violation. How do they get out from underneath this until we suspend their license to operate? Because what they need is a full license in order to operate the way they're operating. But they're not going to immediately just change the way they do business by going from 70% alcohol down to 50%, 49% alcohol. It's unreasonable for us to think they're going to change that unless they change their style of operation. Maybe that's what we're going to insist they do, so that they come in compliance with all the other licenses in town.
City Clerk.
Currently, Your Honor, Councilor Shumway, currently if you have, for instance, a bar and grill license owner who at renewal does not meet that 60-40 split, you as council do not renew that license. They simply lose either their restaurant license or their bar and grill, because that is a stipulation of that license. If we're talking about establishments that are retail license holders or licensees that are trying to allow minors into their establishment, they don't have to meet any kind of split to maintain their license. They just have to maintain a split to allow minors in their establishment. So that's something that upon renewal time, anybody who would like to have minors in their establishment that has not already previously proved their majority food sales, you would review that upon renewal and determine at that time whether or not those establishments can allow minors in there. Does that answer your question?
Well, my question is, obviously, if a business cannot meet that threshold, they don't qualify for an alcohol license. You cannot be in that 100-point violation today, reopen in 5 days, and all of a sudden magically change the style of operation you have. They're going to probably still have the same type of business where they sell more alcohol than they do food. So we're gonna, what we're gonna have to do is say you cannot operate with a permit, alcohol permit, until you start selling more food than alcohol.
Counselor Shumway, I believe that the solution to that, if they got a suspension, would be that they stop letting minors in their establishment. They can continue to do business. If they get a 5-day suspension for getting caught on this,
Right.
then we say you can continue to operate.
But no more minors.
But no more minors. That's
Okay.
just a quick operational change that they can make.
Okay.
So, I'm lost here on my note. Councilor Gabriel, I think you were next.
Yes,
Thank you.
just clarification if I could.
Please.
5 days for 100 points, plus how much monetary fine would it be?
To be
City clerk.
determined.
To be determined?
Probably 1,000.
Your Honor and Counselor, it reads, 100 points in a 12-month period shall have a license suspended for not more than 5 days, period. That is the penalty, thank you,
So there is no
for
fine.
that
Thank you.
violation.
Vice Mayor,
No, I'm good.
you're good. Okay, was it Councilor McKinney?
He already asked and he could.
You got it, okay. Any other discussion on the amendment? Okay, I will add, of course, I'm in support of this because I think that we need that deterrent. I don't think that the city is going to use it, but on a rare occasion, but I think that it's important to have a deterrent. We are a college town, we need to, I think we need to be responsible. So, are there any other discussion? All right, City Clerk, could you do roll call on the amendment?
Do you want to ask the audience?
Oh, I apologize, thank you. Any public comment on this amendment? All right, seeing none. Thank you, Counselor Schuster. No. City Clerk, could you do roll call on the amendment, please?
Polikis,
Yes.
McKinney,
Yes.
Henry,
No.
Hanson absent, Gabriel,
No.
Shumway,
Yes.
Schuster,
Yes.
Pierce,
No.
Somerville.
Yes.
That is 5 yeses, 3 noes, and 1 absent, Your Honor.
Okay, that motion carries. Any further amendments for third reading on this alcohol ordinance? All right, any further discussion on this alcohol ordinance before we finally let it go? We'll just add, I mean, we're gonna have another discussion about fees, but for this particular thing, I really just wanna commend the staff that have worked, I think, on a very short timeline, on a very short deadline, with a very massive change that the legislature has handed us. And we are ahead, we'll be in compliance, this will be on the books before July 1, and I really appreciate the effort, both staff and council, frankly. This has been on our docket for, we've been talking about alcohol a long time now, it seems like. So I just want to send my thanks out to that, and especially our city clerk and city manager, I appreciate it. All right, roll call on third reading, please, city clerk.
As amended.
As amended.
Schuster,
Yes.
Shumway,
Yes.
Polikis,
Yes.
McKinney,
Yes.
Henry,
Yes.
Hanson absent, Gabriel,
Yes.
Pierce,
No.
Somerville.
Yes.
That's 7 yeses, 1 no, and 1 absent, Your Honor.
Okay. That motion carries. All right, we are almost to 8 o'clock. Would you like to take a break?
No. Let's,
All
we
right.
already had one.
Want to make sure. Just checking. Moving on to item 13, Counselor McKinney.
I move that the council approve resolution 2017-35, setting the liquor license master fee schedule with an effective date of July 1st, 2017, as indicated in attachment A, and authorize the mayor and city clerk to sign.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Counselor Henry. City Clerk.
Yes, Your Honor. As you see before you, there is resolution for setting your master fee schedule, which is new to liquor licenses. You'll see in attachment A, the staff proposed fees that were proposed in the ordinance reading 1 and 2. They remained, the same as before. And there's, let's see, what else? Oh, I did provide you something new this time that I just want to point out. There is a chart that lists out the permit or license types. It talks about the specifications involved in that, and then I added what the current fee was down the far right-hand column, so that you can compare which ones are changing and which ones are not. I would like to note again that if there was not a proposed fee change, then we are at the maximum allowed by statute.
Okay. So let's start with questions for city clerk and city staff on the fee schedule. Vice Mayor?
So what we don't have is a document that has the proposed fee compared to the maximum.
City clerk?
In your attachment A, you have, you also have the current fees from the last item, but no, I don't have a side-by-side for you because we didn't have a fee schedule before.
Right.
So I didn't really have a crossed-out version to
But
give
in
you.
the first, sorry, Angie, but I think in the
It's
first
okay.
document, we saw it had the maximum amount and then the reduction.
Oh, yep.
Correct?
And that's
Mm-hmm.
that one.
Right, but it's not in the current. So whose is this?
This is Councilor
Yeah.
Lucas.
It's difficult.
Would council like copies of the max, of that page
Or I can
for
go,
this discussion?
Your Honor, I could just go through them one by one and tell you what the current one is if you want
We can't
to.
write it because we have computers.
You do have computers. You're right.
Not me.
So what you could do, though, just to help me out,
Mm-hmm.
is on
That's why I
the,
did it.
what we're calling the fee schedule, or the fee schedule attachment A, if you just list out in the same order, the maximum, and I can probably keep up, right?
I remember. I don't need.
And we're just straight down
I did not bring the maximum with me.
It's in
City-
here. It's one of our
clerk.
attachments, I think.
might have been in the very first one, though. It's not in the current.
No, it's not the current one.
Oh.
I apologize, I did not.
What, city clerk, why don't we take a brief 5-minute recess and grab
I
a
can do that.
document, just so everybody's got everything on the same page, but we're not trying to figure this out, so 5-minute recess, please.
Sorry, you guys.
No, you're fine. Order. So everybody should have at their station, or their seats, one of these. So the column on the far right-hand side is your maximum allowed by state law on July 1st. The column next to it is the current fee that the city of Laramie has. The recommended fees that were brought to us are still on attachment A,
I got it here too.
so. So, Vice Mayor, was that your
That's
request for this?
perfect.
Does that
And
work?
thank you so
Okay.
much. And I apologize. I should have probably sent you an email or something, but thank you.
I appreciate it. This will be helpful for the discussion. Okay, City Clerk, was there anything else that you needed to add to the discussion on this? Okay. All right. So, any questions from City Council members on the fee schedule? Start with that. Okay? We'll go to comments.
I
Oh,
have one.
please, Councilor Shumway.
Just a question. On the 24-hour extra dispensing room permit, the state of Wyoming has 0, but we have $25.
City Clerk.
Your Honor, Counselor Shumway, as of July 1st, we may no longer, we're not going to have that additional dispensing room because it's going to be the entire building.
Okay,
So
so
the
that just
fee
goes-
simply goes away.
That goes away, okay, that makes sense.
And that goes along with the other items that go down to 0 because
Correct,
they are no longer needed.
correct.
All right, any other questions? Okay. Is there any comment from the public on the fee schedule? All right, seeing none, I'll open it back up to council comment, discussion, amendments. Who wants to go first? Counselor Henry?
I just want to point out that there is a Scrivener's error on the master fee schedule for special malt beverage permits. It says up to 10,00, and the next one is 20,00, so there's just a 0 missing on both of those. I just wanted to point that out. That's just my first comment.
All right, Vice Mayor.
So I'm ready to go with some amendments, but I can wait if other folks want to have a discussion.
All right, let's put them, please.
I would
Counselor
suggest we
Fleekus?
put amendments on the floor and discuss them as they come up, rather than have a general discussion and then try to do the same discussion after we put an amendment on the floor.
Fair enough. Vice Mayor, amendment away.
So it would be on the bar and grill license. The proposal is $1,500. The maximum that the state would allow us to charge is $10,500. So I guess my amendment would be to change that $1,500 to $75.
Yeah, actually,
It's already changed.
The bar and grill license is 3,000, 2,000.
Okay, so then let's just go
3,000.
7,500 for the first year and 5,000 for the second.
Do we have a second for that amendment? All right, that amendment dies for lack of a second. Any other amendments?
Yes.
Counselor
But I'm
Henry?
so confused, so just hang on a minute.
Okay. So I want to say something to council here as we're talking about all of this. I want to urge council members to keep in mind that we had a discussion, we had them bring to us, how much it's costing the city clerk's office to operate these. Remind council again, many of these fees have not changed since the 1940s. If we just adjusted them by inflation to 2017, it would be significant. So even such as the vice mayor's amendment to the bar and grill license, that's a very small increase. And at a time when we are literally hamstringed for funding, I think we need to make sure that programs that we're required to run by the state are paying for themselves. And right now, we're not there. So I can't bring motions or seconds, so I will just say that. Counselor Henry.
Okay, I would make a motion to increase the bar and grill license to $5,000 for the first year and $3,000 for each renewal year.
We have a second for that amendment.
Second.
Second by the vice mayor. Discussion on that amendment.
Just
Counselor Henry?
what you said, I mean, it is the amount of time that our city clerk and assistant city clerk spend on these licenses, as well as city council and probably other staff, city attorney, et cetera. I think that it is, and then when we got the comparisons for other cities, such as in Colorado, it's just, I think we should be charging more. And I think the people can afford it.
Vice Mayor?
Well, just to remind folks that on the open market or retail market, the value of these license, or this particular license, is, in my opinion, much, much higher than the fee. What?
City clerk?
Your Honor,
Bar and grill.
bar and grills are you cannot transfer those, so you
Oh,
cannot
sorry.
sell a bar and grill. You can sell
Sorry,
a retail
you're right.
license. I just want to make that clarification.
You're right. Okay, sorry.
Counselor Shumway?
When we had, I think it was three licenses available, we tried to market them at 5,000. We didn't have any interest, so we dropped it down to where it was, 1,500. I think we can go 3,000. I don't think we can go 5,000, which is what's proposed right now. So in order for us to make this happen, I think we need to be reasonable, and I think the first year at 3,000, the second year at 2,000 for renewal, and any renewal year would be more appropriate. So I'm going to vote no on the amendment and leave it as it's proposed on the fee schedule.
Counselor Schuster?
I agree quite a lot with Mr. Shumway, and I want people to realize that, yes, we do have some more of them available. I don't know if we should give them all out the first year. Let people apply. We have 6 more. So that would be another, in its first year, $18,000 in revenue. And a lot of them that are applying for this are already current restaurant licenses. So they just want to have the ability, the difference between a restaurant and a bar and grill is they can actually mix the drink in front of you, where a restaurant has to have a dispensing room, that they have to go into a back room, mix the drink, and walk the drink out to you. So a lot of people feel there is value in this license, but I agree, when we first had them come out, and I believe it was 4, but it's only been out for about 10 years, is all the bar and grills out. We had 1 go out, and we had 3 of them that sat in our books for a long, long time. So I think we could easily overprice these and just have people go, no, I don't need to have that dispense. I don't need to mix it in front of the customer for that price. So I think we can overprice these, so no, I will not be supporting this one either.
Councilor Palikas?
Can someone tell me what, I know we sat on these licenses for a long time. I thought it was 5,000 that they just didn't go anywhere with?
Correct.
Was that right?
Right.
Okay. So, as been said, my only concern is, last time they tried it at 5,000, which wasn't that long ago. It was only probably 7 or 8, 9 years ago. It really wasn't that long ago. It was during my time that we changed it and lowered it and gave them out. So, and I haven't been on council that long. But anyway, my point is I'm all for having them higher, but I want them to be competitive, and I want them to be out there on the market, not just sitting on the shelf like they did for many, many years. And I think that was at a $5,000. Now, the difference was it was at a $5,000 initiation and a $5,000 yearly cost at that time. So I'm a little uncomfortable with what's on the floor right now. I am comfortable with the 3,000 / what is it, 2,000 per year. I just not sure I want to go as high as what's being proposed right now. I'd probably be willing to go with the 5,000 initiation and say 2,000 per year, and if it doesn't sell, then we bring them back to the floor and we lower the price like we did last time. So that's where I'm standing right now on this amendment.
So the amendment was 5,300, right? Or 5,000 and 3,000?
5,000 and 3,000.
5,000 and 3,000? And you're like proposing 5,000 and 2,000?
It's for discussion.
What I'm telling you is, I'm willing to go with a higher initiation fee because if it sells for that, fine. I just know that the 5,000 combination several years ago did not sell on the community. It was a no sale, okay? And we ended up lowering it to 1,500 is what we ended up doing, and then we had more applicants than what we had available. So I need the answer somewhere in the middle.
So I'll add a comment to this discussion for council. So a couple of things. So first, I wasn't on council when all of this happened initially, but I will tell you that I think the economy and the restaurant market in Laramie is significantly different than it was 10 years ago. I will also draw everybody's attention to the document that's in your agenda packet, which is a comparison from cities. And right now, the city of Cheyenne charges $10,500 for an initial bar and grill license and $1,500 for renewal. They have 0 bar and grill licenses left. Casper charges $10,500 for an initial and $3,000 for a renewal. They have 0 bar and grill license available right now. These licenses are in high demand right now. I listened to a very significant presentation to the legislature from an economic development group in the state that this is the type of 21st century business model that the restaurants are seeking, and they want these licenses. They are valuable. I do also believe that they can afford it, because that's what I have been told through those economic development presentations. This is a small, very, very small percentage of their sales. The other thing that I want to remind everybody is, again, we are asking the state legislature, telling them that we are in a budget crunch and we need them to continue funding us. So the question that I got asked most this last spring was, so what are you guys doing to help yourself? With the tools that you already have, what are you doing? And if my response to them is, well, are you charging the maximum amount on your alcohol fees? And my response is no. That really diminishes our argument for additional funding and additional ways to help run the city of Laramie. So I understand that there's a drawback to a business with a jump, and I understand that. Maybe the answer is having council set an automatic fee increase for all of these licenses, take the recommended schedule and put a 3% increase until another council takes it off, or a 5% increase till another council takes it off, so that it's a gradual climb instead of a jump. But we have to increase these fees. And the bar and grill licenses are one of the most popular licenses. We can't do anything with the retail licenses until the state allows us, which will be on the docket for WHAM to lobby for next year. But we need to do something with the fees that we have. I will leave it at that. Is there any other discussion on Councilor Henry's motion for 5,000 initial and 3,000 renewal? Okay. City Clerk, can you do, or I'm sorry, is there any public comment on the amendment? City Clerk, can you do a roll call on the amendment?
Henry.
Yes.
Hanson, absent. Gabriel.
No.
Lekus.
Yes, yes.
Shumway.
Yes.
Schuster.
No.
McKinney.
No.
Pierce.
Yes.
Somerville.
Yes.
That is 5 yeses, 3 nos, and 1 absent, Your Honor.
Thank you. That amendment carries. Just make a note of that real quick.
5-3.
5-3. Okay. Additional amendments. Counselor Henry.
Okay, I would like to propose I'm going to put 2 in 1,
That's
all
fine.
right? The malt beverage permits for special events, I don't know what they call it on the master fee schedule, because I have to look
here.
on.
No.
Your Honor.
Please, City Clerk.
That would be the malt beverage permit.
Oh, malt
Okay,
beverage permit.
the malt beverage permit and the catering permit. I
Your
would
Honor,
like to
the alcohol catering permit, if you
Alcohol
want that.
catering permit. I move that we change those to $75 each instead of $60.
50.
Second.
Second by Vice Mayor. And so,
And my reasoning being that, again, it takes a lot of staff time to process these permits.
further discussion on this amendment. Counselor Plicas.
Can I get a review of just where, the type of events that people apply for these, how many we do a year, so forth? Just real quick, I don't need a in-depth.
City Clerk.
Sure. Your Honor, Counselor Plicas, the second page of your alcohol type chart, you'll see an alcohol catering permit. It's a 24-hour permit. It can be only obtained by a retail or a resort liquor license holder. It is used for special events such as if someone wants to have an event out on the street and they want to sell alcohol beyond just beer and they want to sell it. It's also for if a business is bringing in the public, they're giving away alcohol in the hopes of future business. It's all used for that. The malt beverage is exactly the same, except that you can only serve beer and it can be obtained by any citizen. But that's what those are used for. It's those one-time events and where there's either money or a donation or future business exchanged for alcohol of some sort.
City Clerk, could you also clarify about how many we do? I think that was
Yeah.
part of your question as well.
Just rough numbers,
About 300, I would say.
that's fine.
Okay.
Thank you.
Counselor Schuster.
I just wanted to tell them, when my parents used to have a business in town here, we used to have a get-together at Washington Park, and we would reserve the band shell and do this permit, and it was not for future business, it was just gratitude for employees. But that is the same type thing if you had something like that. So I just wanted to give an example.
City Clerk.
May I clarify? That would actually be an example of an open container permit where you want to consume alcohol on public property, but you are not exchanging any goods
Yeah.
for that alcohol.
Okay.
That's an open container permit, currently requested at $25.
Okay.
Because there is no sale
I thought
in
it was
that.
similar to this, but yeah.
Any other discussion on this amendment? Any comments from,
One other question.
Please,
When was the
Counselor.
last time this was raised? Can you help me out with that?
City Clerk? I have page
Was it-
1, but it's not loading anything else.
Both of these.
Your Honor, Counselor Plikas, I did not find any other fee beyond this, so since they've been in existence, this is the fee that I could find. I don't know what year that was that they came about, though.
So it's been a long time
It has
since
been
they've
a very
raised.
long time, yes.
Thank you.
Any other discussion from council on this amendment? City Clerk, can you do roll call on the amendment, reminding everybody this will change the malt beverage and catering permits to $75 each from the recommended 60.
Henry.
Yes.
Hanson absent. McKinney.
Yes.
Pelikas.
Yes.
Shumway.
Yes.
Schuster.
Yes.
Gabriel.
Yes.
Pierce.
Yes.
Somerville.
Yes.
That is 8 yeses, 0 nos, and 1 absent, Your Honor.
Thank you, that motion carries. That will be amended in. Any other amendments?
Oh.
Counselor Henry?
Okay. I
While the
have
iron's hot.
another amendment, that the application fee and the late fee both be increased to $50 each.
Do we have a second for that amendment?
Second.
Second by the Vice Mayor. Give me just a second to find the application and the late fee. Okay, that is on the master fee schedule for everybody
Yes.
that's looking. And Counselor Henry, can you tell me again what the amount was? To $50?
$50
Okay,
from, yeah,
thank you. Did you want to,
on
go
both
ahead,
of them. And
please.
again, my reasoning being that the staff time that it takes to prepare, to process the applications and the late fee, people shouldn't turn it in late. So let's deter them.
City Clerk?
I would like to let you know, the application fee was not on your chart before because it was within your ordinance. It previously was $25. And the late fee for catering permits, that's actually a new fee because we've been struggling with so many late applications. That $25 is a new fee and would be added on top of the $75 that you just approved.
The late fee? Mm-hmm. Yes.
Any discussion on this? On adjusting the late fee to $50? Public comment on this? Further council discussion? City Clerk, roll call on the amendment, please.
Gabriel.
Yes.
Hanson absent. Henry.
Yes.
McKinney.
Yes.
Pelikas.
Yes.
Shumway.
Yes.
Schuster.
Yes.
Pierce.
Yes.
Somerville.
Yes,
That's 8 yeses and 0 nos, Your Honor.
that motion carries. That will be amended in. Counselor Henry, anything else or anybody else?
Well, I was going to, but I think I'll hold back now.
To clarify with council, I think the only ones that we haven't changed are the limited retail. We cannot touch the retail licenses. Those are maxed out at state statute.
And
the
restaurant.
restaurant licenses, those are currently still at 1,500 on the right, or 1,750, I'm sorry, 1,750. All right, any other amendments? Going once.
So,
Vice Mayor.
yeah, I would like to, all the ones that we have not already amended, except for the limited retail license club, I would like to propose the maximum amount.
We have a second for that amendment.
Gotta try.
All right, that dies for a lack of second. Any other amendments? Did you have a Counselor Henry?
I as well. Okay, so I would move that we increase the restaurant license to 2,000.
Second.
Second by the Vice Mayor. Discussion on this. Counselor Pelikas.
I've been talked out of a couple of the other ones, but I have to tell you, you know, the problem with the restaurant licenses is you really have a wide spectrum of licenses. Certainly you have some licenses out there that can well afford this amount of money, but you also have some very small mom and pop type restaurants that are barely making it, if that. We've raised them $17.50. We've raised them basically $250, and I'm comfortable with that at this point in time. I'm not, unless I can get a convincing argument from the mayor like I did in the last one, I'm not comfortable with raising these at this point in time.
1982?
Vice Mayor?
1982 was the last time it was raised. 1982?
25?
I'll make a comment. I was born a year earlier. That's how old that fee is. And I wanted to prepare, give me just a second here. I'm gonna do a calculation.
So we are raising it 250, and now we want to go up 500 if this amendment passes.
30%.
2,000, yep.
30%.
Just a second here.
$40 a month.
Easy $20 a year.
So I'll add a comment here for council's knowledge. If this $1,500 since 1982 had only increased by inflation since 1982, it would be $3,964.
Inflation calculator?
Yeah, inflation calculator. It's a marvel of computers. Any other discussion on this? City Clerk, can you do roll call on this amendment, please?
Henry.
Yes.
Schuster.
No.
Shumway.
No.
Polikis.
No.
McKinney.
Yes.
Hanson, absent. Gabriel.
No.
Pierce.
Yes.
Somerville.
Yes,
That is 4 yeses and 4 noes, Your Honor.
and that motion fails. Further amendments? Okay, I have a question for staff. One of the issues that I've seen with this fee schedule is exactly what we just talked about, is that the fees have not increased since 1982. We've pulled them out into a fee schedule to hopefully make that easier, but is there anything that we can set in process this evening that would require an annual or a biannual review for costs going forward, or is that something that you can do administratively?
Mayor and Council, you'll recall at the budget work sessions, I told you all that I am trying to put together a resolution that will identify all of our various fee schedules and establish for the governing body and also for staff an annual or every 2-year review date so that these things don't get overlooked for decades. So I guess the answer is if you adopt that resolution, you can establish those review dates by resolution, and then we'll note those things in our calendaring and bring them back as a routine matter of business.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Any other discussion on this fee schedule? Any other public Counselor Henry, please.
It's too late to make another.
No, it's not. We're still
Okay.
on the floor.
All right, so I move that we increase the microbrewery or winery permit from $500 to $1,000.
Second.
Second by the Vice Mayor. Discussion on this amendment.
Check Angie, I don't think we.
Oh, City Clerk?
Your Honor, that the maximum is 500. That is a typo on this sheet that I just provided you tonight.
I withdraw my motion.
Does the second concur?
Yes.
All right, we will not violate state statute. Any other amendments? Comments from the public on the main motion, which is the fee schedule? Any other comments from council? Okay, City Clerk, can you do roll call on the main motion? As amended.
McKinney.
Yes.
Henry.
Yes.
Gabriel.
Yes.
Hanson, absent. Polikis.
Yes, yes.
Shumway.
Yes.
Schuster.
Yes.
Pierce.
Yes.
Somerville.
Yes.
That is 8 yeses, 0 noes, and 1 absent, Your Honor.
Thank you, that motion carries. All right, moving on to item number 14, and my thanks to the patience of our guests. That will be Councilor McKinney.
Oh, it's mine.
Oh, I'm sorry, I apologize.
No, it's
I
fine.
apologize.
He was 13. She gave up 13 to,
Yep.
not 14.
All
No,
right.
I apologize.
So I move to approve the Meadows subdivision preliminary PUD ordinance 1970 as recommended by the Planning Commission on first reading, based on findings of fact and conclusions of law, and subject to all staff's recommended conditions, and set a public hearing for June 20th, 2017.
Second.
Second by Counselor Shumway. Manager Teeny.
Mayor and council, good evening. Before you are two motions on this singular item. And so first what I'm going to do is just kind of explain the reason why that is like this. Give you a little bit of process background so you kind of know where this item will go forward, how this will go forward before council. Background, and then we'll get into the details of the subdivision and PUD. First of all, you'll see the two motions. The first motion, which was read by Member Henry, is an ordinance. A planned unit development is approved by ordinance. It's essentially an overlay zoning district that will establish special zoning and rules related to that zoning for that area and for this development. Your second motion on here is a motion to postpone the preliminary plat. The preliminary plat is the document that actually will create a plat and invest rights in the actual division of the property for a future final plat to come forward. That is independent of the PUD, although they look similar, they contain a lot of the same information. They're separate processes. And you'll note that the postponement there is because it is only required to have one reading. So what we will do is we will bring that item back, as it says in the report, on July 5th, which is the anticipated third reading date for the PUD item. I will note in the second motion, the very end of that motion, it says, and set a public meeting for June 20th, 2017. That actually doesn't need to be read in the motion. We don't need that public meeting part of it, and so you can just end at meeting on July 5th, 2017. As far as process, as I noted, the PUD will move forward depending upon the action of council with 3 readings and a public hearing, just like any other ordinance for a zoning ordinance, a text amendment, et cetera, would go. So there will be 3 opportunities, just as the ordinance you finished with alcohol on, to provide amendments or changes or anything like that, if you so wish. To note, the preliminary PUD and the preliminary plat are slightly different. And so I will point that out if you look at your information in your packet. The preliminary PUD, or the preliminary plat, contains both the area looking to be developed, if you can see the cursor on the screen, which includes the subdivision, the road, the private open space, the trail, all of that related with the PUD itself, as well as Laprelle Park. To be clear, the reason for the preliminary plat including Laprelle Park is to correct boundary line issues and survey issues in this area. What you kind of have is I guess a perfect storm of platting, where you have a series of plats that were developed to the north of the park, as well as property ownership in this area that created for a lot of confusing and incorrect boundary lines through this whole area. This plat, the preliminary plat itself, will actually get us one step closer, and then eventually a final plat to correcting all of those errors in the future. Well, that's why you see the difference with the preliminary plat versus the PUD. To be clear, the PUD, it does not include Laprelle Park. Laprelle Park will not be part of a PUD. Really, Laprelle Park won't change other than boundary lines on a map to be properly defined. So, to provide some background on this project, in 2015, staff as well as the applicant began having some discussions about development of the applicant's property for a residential subdivision. Through those discussions, as well as a well project that was done in Laprelle Park, some boundary line issues were noted. Those issues led to a discussion with staff of okay, if you're looking at possibly developing this property and doing the platting and some of the survey work necessary, it's probably an appropriate time to correct the errors within the park to make sure that we are all on each other's property, which is a problem because if you note, the wells that were drilled were actually not drilled in the park. They were drilled on property adjacent to the park there, which was actually the property which we're seeing developed as a PUD. So all through that process, it was discussed how do we move forward. In 2015, council approved a MOU with the developers, which is Rawstone Inc. They, through that MOU, established two different scenarios. Scenario one, if they actually develop the property, which is what they're proceeding forward with, and scenario two, if they don't develop it, how do we correct at least the boundary line issues without the development proposal? That MOU is in your packet, so you can see that information that's contained in there to help you remind yourself of that if you were on council or if you were not. That gives you an opportunity to see that. Overall, kind of getting into some of the actual details of the subdivision, including the PUD and preliminary plat. I'm going to talk about both of them because they are very interrelated and they will cover much of the same topics as I talk about both. As I noted, the preliminary plat contains Laprelle Park as well as the area that's being developed. The PUD only contains the area that's looked at being developed that's owned by Rawstone Development. The area is all zoned R1. That's a single-family residential zoning district. That zoning district allows for single-family residential homes primarily and a few other minor uses. With this PUD, you'll note that included in the documentation that you see within the staff report is what's called a PUD handbook. In that PUD handbook, many things are detailed out, including the single-family nature of the subdivision. With this preliminary plat and with this PUD, you're going to see 15 lots, residential lots. One of those residential lots is the existing home that's kind of located to the east of Laprelle Park and it's kind of out in the field, is what I like to say right now. With the remaining 14 lots being located along an extension of Ashley Street. Ashley Street currently exists in the Corthell neighborhood. This will extend up to the north and will be developed with a cul-de-sac. Of note, and to note within a PUD, PUDs do not require you necessarily to follow all the same standards that you would see within all subdivisions. Within this PUD, you see instead of a typical curb guttered sidewalked road, you see an asphalt paved road that goes in there with no curbs and gutters, almost what I'm going to call a rural feel of road. Also included on there is a cul-de-sac, as I noted, that does accommodate all fire apparatus, so it provides all proper emergency access and turnaround. And so the standard difference there is the curb and gutter and no sidewalk. In lieu of the sidewalk, the applicants have proposed for access to the residential lots a private gravel trail that would be located off of Ashley Street and would be located on the east side of Ashley, would go up to where the cul-de-sac is and then actually provide a connection into the park, basically, I'm going to say directly west of the cul-de-sac. The other areas within the subdivision are outlots. What you do have is you have one of the outlots being Laprelle Park. That's to replat that lot, or that Laprelle Park is, and properly define those boundaries. With the other 4 outlots being used for the outlots also being used to fix platting and boundary lines, and then the other outlots being used as private open space for the planned unit development. Overall, surrounding zoning in the area is all zoned R1 as well, so the single-family nature fits with the neighborhood. Of note, master planning documents that come into play. First is the major street plan. The major street plan shows Spring Creek Drive extending further to the east and eventually connecting to 30th Street, which is located off this map, but away I think it's about 500 feet to the east there. There's a small sliver of land that would be the Spring Creek extension that's part of this plat, and you'll note that at the top.
The Parks and Rec Master Plan also plays a role. The Parks and Rec Master Plan shows a trail located along Spring Creek corridor. The master plan showed the trail being located south of the Spring Creek, the physical creek. However, as you'll note in the MOU, it was noted that it was agreed upon that the trail be located on the north side of the trail, or of the creek, basically between the creek and the actual physical Spring Creek Road. Also noted within the Parks and Rec plan is obviously Laprelle Park remaining as is. Through the boundary line adjustments and the things that we'll see here, you will see some added land up along the Spring Creek Channel and further to the north and to the east as part of this plat. Of note also is a trail connection that's on the southern border or southern boundary of this subdivision that will go essentially from where Ashley Street goes into the subdivision and go due east, eventually connecting to 30th Street as well, and the trail that would be located on 30th Street. Future land use. The future land use in this area is all suburban residential. It's all anticipated to be developed in some sort of residential nature. I will note, if you look in the Planning Commission staff report, it says suburban commercial. It's just a mistake, so don't get confused. It was pointed out during Planning Commission, so I want to note that. Other items to consider, as I noted, this is a planned unit development. The lots overall are fairly large in size or acreage compared to some of the residential lots in the neighborhood. I will point out there's 3 lots that are located kind of on Ashley and Bonneville, the corner of Ashley and Bonneville. Those lots are fairly typically sized compared to the lots that are directly across the street and already existing in the Corthell development. Those lots will front those streets and will have a typical sidewalk, curb, gutter, and there's no real difference in the typical standard that we would see for those lots. The remaining lots that are located within the subdivision, like I said, are a little bit larger, but they are developable as single-family residential properties. Setbacks are noted within the Planned Unit Development Handbook. Another one of the items that can be included within a planned unit development is specified setbacks. If you read through the Planned Unit Development Handbook, that provides you a lot of details and direction as to how the developer wants to take the subdivision and what they anticipate within the subdivision. One of those being setbacks. They're looking at alternative setbacks, nothing that is necessarily less than the standard that we have, but specific setbacks in order to preserve view sheds and areas within the subdivision to provide for the desired development that they would like to see. Vehicular and pedestrian access is fairly straightforward. As I noted, vehicular access is located on the Ashley Street extension. It is a street that's not standard. It's just a paved ribbon that goes down up into that area and then comes out. There is no curb and gutter there. Pedestrian access is also somewhat different. What you'll see is the 3 lots located on Ashley and Bonneville Street do have public sidewalks and typical sidewalks as you would see. Through the subdivision, though, as I noted, is a gravel or crusher fine trail that's located, that'll come off of Ashley Street, go along the eastern side of the extension of Ashley Street through the subdivision and then out the subdivision. As it's noted in the PUD handbook, they are requesting that be a private sidewalk for the development only, and so that is something that you'll see within that handbook. Landscaping is also detailed out. Two parts to the landscaping plan and proposal. One is landscaping for the outlots. It's anticipated for the developer that they want to keep the outlots essentially natural. They do not anticipate improving those natural areas. They want to keep them for wildlife and for viewing experience of the subdivision and not actually developing, so thinking like turf grass and additional trees. Secondly, the PUD handbook outlines specific landscaping requirements for each of the lots, where landscaping can be placed, how much landscaping can be placed on the lots in order to preserve views throughout the subdivision. Fencing, there is fencing noted. A 3-wire fence is what is being proposed in order to accommodate the wildlife that's in the area. It's what you actually see right now. It's not a barbed wire fence, it's just a smooth wire fence to provide a delineation of the property between the park and their area, as well as future development that may occur further to the east. There is a proposed fence that's located along the Spring Creek Trail as well, that would go between the trail and the creek. The fence, I'm going to say, is a fairly the square box metal wiring with framed in by wood is what the anticipated design of that is, and that would go in the segments there for that travel along the north portion of their property, where the fence is really located on that steep slope going into the channel there. Open space is a requirement with all PUDs. A minimum of 20% of the area must be preserved as open space. In this area, they highly exceed that. Within the subdivision, you see almost 12.2 acres of open space being provided, when the subdivision overall is only, where's the? I think it's about 45%, I think. %43 is the total percent provided, when 20% is what's required. Do note that the open space being dedicated in the subdivision is private open space. It's not anticipated for public use. The preliminary plat, specific things I'd like to point out about that. Once again, Laprelle Park is included in that, as well as the outlots and the lots for the single-family residential subdivision. Drainage, overall drainage is fairly benign within the subdivision. For the most part, the large lot development handles some of the drainage. You then do see I'm going to say a channel that's located along the eastern side of Ashley Street between the road and the trail that's located in the subdivision there. That will accommodate some of the drainage that comes up against the street and properly funnels it in the right directions. And then what you'll see is most of the drainage actually sheet flows out the cul-de-sac area and dissipates into a small swale that's located there that's pretty much not noticeable. As I noted as well, water and sewer service are available for the subdivision and can be adequately provided for fire flows and all of the necessary requirements there. As I noted as well, emergency access has been properly provided, proper turnarounds and fire hydrant placements located throughout the subdivision as well. One thing to note too is that parking is not allowed on the street because there's no curb or gutter there. Definition of that travel lane and where parking could be, we are restricting that as part of the PUD. Overall, we've got two sets, and I'll note within the staff report, of findings of fact. So findings for both the preliminary PUD and the preliminary plat, as well as conditions for the preliminary PUD and preliminary plat. For the most part, many of them are the same and overlap, but they're required for each one because they are two separate processes. In terms of the preliminary PUD, minimum acreage has been met, which is a requirement. The PUD not exceeding maximum density has also been met. All areas or common areas being held in some sort of HOA or other will be met. It is a requirement as noted in the report, and it's something that you develop and will be required at the final PUD stage. PUDs have to meet the use and development standards. That's where you'll see the PUD differing. Not all the use and development standards are there. You will see that, as noted in the cover sheet, the applicants did apply for variances, which just formally recognizes that those changes and requests have been made. Any requirements for the PUD to allow for being not or injurious or detrimental to the neighborhood or having any type of commercial office uses, that's not a request that's part of this PUD. No density bonuses have been requested for this PUD. The development standards for lot sizes, minimum lot standards have been met. Minimum open space standards have been met. Development standards and open space guarantee, that is a requirement for establishment of that homeowners association and is required. Item number 10, a variance was applied for, which was to allow a PUD greater than 15 acres to not have more than 2 access points to collectors' arterials. This was something that was looked at. Typically, when you see a PUD of something like 34 acres, you're anticipating anywhere from 200 to 300 homes located in that area, not 14. Purpose of that is anything over 15 acres, you're going to be looking at, like I said, about 150 homes at probably minimum. And with that, multiple access points to collectors' arterials are required. In the review of this subdivision does not even trigger the requirement for the city to request a traffic study to even analyze traffic because of its minimal impact on local roads even. And so the variance request, the Planning Commission did approve that. Sidewalks being built to city specification, as I noted. Sidewalks along the 3 lots that are located along Ashley Street and Bonneville will have a typical sidewalk as you see in the neighborhood. The other lots will not. They'll be using the gravel trail or crusher fine trail for pedestrian access in the subdivision. Maximum building heights, there are no issues with maximum building heights. However, it should be noted that there is a section in here that talks about no dwellings facing the back of another dwelling. That was an item that a variance was requested on that. If you look at the configuration of the homes and then the home that's already existing there, as well as the 3 houses that are on Ashley Street, by default, some of the houses in the subdivision are going to face the back of another house. But in this case, we felt that it was not detrimental to and not contrary to what code was trying to accomplish, which is you don't want backs of houses, for instance, facing, an alleyway or a bunch of houses lined up in a row. Landscaping plan is provided, as noted in item 13. Residential signs with the PUD should be subject to requirements of this section. Basically, no formal signage has been proposed with the PUD, but any signs such as a subdivision sign, which is allowed, would just have to meet any of our subdivision sign regulations. Topographical barriers as item number 5. The layout really, this one doesn't require any specified setbacks, but they do have specified setbacks in the PUD to allow preserved view sheds and such as noted in the PUD handbook. In terms of the preliminary plat, the findings are met there as well. The property is properly zoned and meets minimum lot size and dimensions. The appropriate design requirements of Laramie Municipal Code have been met as long as the PUD is approved. That is why the PUD is first in line in the approval process. And item number 3, that this subdivision can be adequately served by infrastructure such as water, sewer, roads, and other utilities. Of note, we received quite a few public comments regarding the subdivision. As it's noted in the staff report, the majority of the public comments were concerns with Laprelle Park and the fact of Laprelle Park, is it going to change? Is it going to be developed? Most of those, once they had an opportunity to talk with staff, those items were addressed. As you'll note though as well, we had comments associated with this application being water availability, traffic, the number of homes being built. All of those things were all things brought up in the actual public comments. You'll also note that there are 4 public comments attached with quite a few different items that they've brought up as well in terms of comments that they felt should be addressed. Finally, I'll just point out, and I won't go through them unless you have questions, there are 2 sets of conditions. One's for the PUD and one's for the preliminary plat. As we go through discussion and such, if there are changes, we may need to make changes to both sections, but that's not difficult, and I'll help you through that. So with that, there's a lot of information in here, a lot of information contained within the PUD handbook, but I would be happy to answer any questions. I do know the applicants are here as well, and so they can address any questions that you may have for them, and I'll leave it at that.
Vice Mayor.
So you said that there is a private open space. And when I think of open space, I maybe mistakenly think that it's public open space. maybe that's a mistake, I don't know. But if they have private open space and our definition of open space is in fact public open space, do they meet the requirements of public open space? And kind of what I'm getting to is it appears to me that we're hinting at somewhat of a gated type community or almost getting to something close to a gated community, but not exactly. And I'm just wondering, I guess I've got a couple things going on, but is there public open space and does that meet the requirement?
So, open space. Open space in our code can be both private and public. Requirements for the PUD allow for you to meet your minimum 20% with public or private open space. So in this case, they are meeting their requirement with private open space, which is not open to the public, and it does meet the requirement.
But their open space is, okay, so let me just restate that, what you said. So what you're saying is their open space is actually private open space, and because we don't differentiate in the definition of open space being public or private, they meet the standard.
Mayor and council, we actually differentiate between private open space and public open space, and we allow for the PUD to use either.
Oh, okay, okay.
During the development of the Unified Development Code and looking at the open space, this was discussed pretty heavily. And the idea was that there were some areas that we may be okay with private open space versus public open space. And that's why both were allowed to count towards that overall 20% for the PUD. And such as in this case, that's being allowed. To be clear, there's no gate. The road is a public road. It's not a private road. Anybody can drive into it if they want.
So help me out here. They have a private sidewalk, but it's not a gated community. They're putting up fencing that perhaps has the appearance or illusion or getting close to privacy, right? And they have private open space, yet it's not in what I would consider a gated or private, mini private community.
So the fencing, a couple things. Yes, private open space, not open to the public.
Right.
Yes, private pathway on the east that goes along that east side of Ashley, and then it'll go out and connect to the park. And then fencing, you've got existing fencing that essentially is going to remain the same place, delineating that boundary between Laprelle Park and the subdivision or the property that they own. And then what they have is a future desire to put a fence along and I'll just point up here, this kind of this eastern edge of the subdivision over here, as if this area further to the east, which they do not own, develops.
Okay, so my other question then is, in that private open space, is that for one person in this community, or is it for everybody in the community?
Per the PUD handbook, it's for the residents of this PUD.
So for 15 months.
Okay.
Other questions for staff? Counselor Schuster.
I see the boundary line, and I realize what boundary lines are, but part of this has been a dirt parking lot for a while for the bridge. The fence that they are intending to build, will it be on the north side of the river, or Spring Creek? Will it be on the north side of the creek or the south side of the creek? Just a question.
North side of the creek is where the fence, the piece of the fence that would be adjacent to the trail that's going to go on Spring Creek, that's where it would be, between the trail. It'd be trail, fence, Spring Creek.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Other questions for staff? Counselor Palikas.
So if I understand it right, because it's a public road, there's public access to within this subdivision, but there's no means for the public to walk other than in the street within this subdivision.
Correct.
Thank you.
Other questions for staff? Counselor Henry.
In your opinion, Does an asphalt ribbon paved road hold up to construction vehicles, cement trucks, et cetera, during construction period and then far into the future, say 75 years? Because this will come under the city will be responsible for maintaining this asphalt road with no curb and gutter.
Mayor and council, the big difference is the lack of curb and gutter, not the actual physical construction of the asphalt width, basically. With a ribbon like this, the base below it and the physical thickness of the asphalt is all what our standards require and are designed by engineers to hold up. They're not laying 1 inch of asphalt on the dirt. That's not what we're getting here. We're getting a fully engineered street section that's fairly typical of what we would see elsewhere, except for the lack of curb and gutter in the sidewalks on the edges.
Okay, one follow-up to that.
Please, and then I have a follow-up.
And that is, what is the standard of Riverside Drive?
Riverside Drive, who knows? It's been, yeah, it's, some amount of asphalt on, who knows, some thickness of base. It's not,
Okay,
we don't know.
all right,
Yeah.
thank you.
I have a quick follow-up to Councilor Henry's question, and I'm searching here, so bear with me, but
Yep.
I swear I read in the PUD handbook that the streets will not conform to any City of Laramie standards. I'm looking, yep, here it is. So on page 6 of the PUD handbook, it says that the extension of Ashley Street will be a paved public street and provide access to 11 new residential lots and 1 existing residence. This will be a reduced section street that does not conform to any City of Laramie standard details. So, am I not understanding that correctly? Because to me, that looks like this street is not gonna meet street standards. Or it doesn't have to meet street standards. Let me clarify that statement, so I
Yeah.
just wanna be clear on that.
Mayor and council, if you want some of the real nitty and gritty details, I know the applicant's engineer is here. However, the reason why it says this is because we do not, as a City of Laramie, have a standard detail that includes a street that has no curb, gutter, sidewalk. So when you take that out of it, you are developing a street that does not meet any standard city detail. With that, though, I will assure you that the development of the actual physical street is not a street that we're going to be having to maintain later down the road because it's, only 1 inch thick or a ½ inch thick of asphalt on the dirt that's out there. And so, like I said, I would recommend that maybe you ask the applicant's engineer if you want some of the details on how that compares to a local street, which this is, in terms of the thickness of base as well as the thickness of asphalt.
Thank you for clarifying that, because I took that completely the wrong way. Councilor Schuster?
And that's just what I was gonna state, we could just go over here to rental, knock the curb and gutter off, and basically the underlayment of the street and the asphalt would be similar to a street produced like that.
Correct.
Thank you.
Any other questions, just questions for city staff? Okay, thank you very much. So right now, go ahead and give the applicants a chance to speak if they want to before, please, I invite you up. Mr. Greaser, if you can introduce yourself for the record, and then on your way back out, if you can sign the sheet behind the city clerk.
Will do.
Thank you
Will
so
do.
much.
Hello. And good evening, Honorable Mayor, councilors. My name is Paul Greaser. I'm here with my son, who's in our company, Warren Greaser, and from Coffee Engineering, Dave Coffey and Stuart Telford. The only one who wasn't able to make it here tonight is Don Prohoda, who is our counsel that helped in developing the MOU, which also guided us through how we got from where we were to where we are today. So if I can, we've been talking a little bit about what happened in the 80s. In about 30 years ago, we acquired this property, and 25 years ago, my wife and I built our home there. And so we have enjoyed raising a family there and watching them get up and leave. And about 3 years ago, or a little more, we decided we'd try and figure out how to do as low of impact of a development that we could possibly do that would still be economically feasible in there. And with homes that were kind of being forced out of the community, out into the county, which is what I think you're seeing quite a bit now of, and go to a larger lot concept. Over the years, we've had so many comments about people who say, gee, we've stopped and enjoyed the wildlife that we've seen on there. And believe me, there's a lot. And they're there every day, a lot of them, a lot of the different species. And so we don't know how exactly 11 more houses in that area, the area right up on Hillside and of the 3 lots, Hillside, et cetera, doesn't get used a lot. But the area that's open down by the creek, that is used a lot by the different species of wildlife we have, and the list is very long. Antelope are there virtually every day, and like I said, we don't know the impact that any development will have on that, but we're trying to accommodate it as best we can and still make use of our land. To that end, the lots 1 through 11 and 15 will have a requirement that there's 30% of each of those lots has to be kept natural, as well as the private open space that we're proposing. The reason, and back to private open space to answer your question, Councilor Pierce, if you think of Richards Park, that is all private open space, of the open space that goes back in between the houses there. And Richards Park will maintains that. That one was done in a bluegrass configuration, and that's not what we're trying to do here. We're trying to keep it as much as natural as we possibly can and yet still make, as I said, use of the land. We thought about the cost on economic feasibility of building 1,500 feet of street, which is about what that is, and only having 11 lots on it, none of which is double loaded. It's all of Ashley extended is all single loaded. So you don't have lots on the other side of the street to help pay for the cost of the street. Another thing we looked at was the configuration of the open space does not really lend itself to having it as a public thoroughfare if we're going to try and maintain a natural area. So the private path that we are proposing exists on each of the lots. It's on an easement on each of the lots. It's not in the public right-of-way. And we looked at that and we said, okay, if there is a public, someone from the public and they are in the park, do they really need to go on that pathway to go and get out on the corner of Ashley and Hillside? And there is existing and will continue to exist a public right-of-way that's actually a shorter route to get to that point. So that's why we believe that the public street is great and the private path is also great for this particular subdivision. In Richards Park, for instance, the open space does not really have any public access to it either, but if you're on a sidewalk, you don't have any access to that public space. And since we are configured with the public space kind of surrounding all of the lots, or the open space, we do not believe a sidewalk is something that we would want to do in this particular subdivision. That's why it came down to this. So 3 years ago, we started talking about doing this. We discovered some of the anomalies, as Mr. Taney has explained, and that is why we started developing what we're doing here and brought the MOU forward in 2015, and then tried to figure out whether this would work or not, and we do believe it will work as a viable subdivision at this point. Back again, Councilor Pierce, the homeowners association will be the owners of the private space, the open space in the subdivision, and so every owner there will have access to it. And with that, I'm sure you have questions for me, and Warren is the author of most of the PUD handbook. He can help you with that if you have questions on that, and Mr. Coffey and Mr. Telford can help you with any questions you might have regarding the engineering and why it is the way it is.
Questions for the applicant? Councilor Palikas?
I have a question. The Spring Creek Trail that eventually will go in, it's going to go in as negotiated on the north side
Yes.
of the creek versus the south side of the creek through the open space. Within that definition of that, and the way I see it, for the majority of that trail along your property is basically going to be an oversized sidewalk. It's going to be pretty much, am I correct on that, or?
You mean as far as right on Spring Creek?
Yes.
I would have to defer to either Mr. Fieser or city engineer, but it's
Okay.
defined as a Class A trail as far as I
So the
know.
question I had was part of that negotiation, there's supposed to be a fence
Yes,
between the trail and the creek.
yes,
I assume that fence is going to be right up against the trail.
yes.
And has it been negotiated? What's that fence going to look like?
We,
Is it going to be a 3-wire barbed fence, or is it going to be?
no, it's going to be very similar to what is there now, only it'll have a top rail.
Okay,
It's going to be open so you can see through it. We are proposing a 4-foot-high fence with wire down, and it's in the box formation, and the idea there is to keep any animals that are in that area from getting through and into the creek, disturbing what's there. For instance, there are mallards and geese that have lived in that creek. You don't see them much because they're up a little further, but they live there year-round now, so.
I've seen them.
Oh, okay. Yeah, of course you have.
So the trail is the fence is a wildlife fence versus a private fence to keep the public out?
Well, the public, it is, the creek in that area is private. It is not, and it is not part of city-owned. City has an easement through there, and
Okay.
so the city will acquire, I don't know if that's on here or not. No, it is. It's below that, but there's, if you can go back to the prior, that one, yes. Excuse me, if you don't mind. Right up, the city will acquire the piece, that one, yes. No, just the first one.
Just this,
No, just right at the very top, outlot, I can't read that.
outlot H.
Outlot H. That will become part of the city, but everything else is not, is still in a city easement.
That clarifies it, thank you.
Councilor Schuster?
Paul, I hate to drag you over to my area, but I brought this up here. Is approximately where that red line gonna be the fence?
Yes.
Okay, so I hate to say, the dirt parking lot that people use a huge amount by the concrete bridge, that'll still be a dirt parking lot for the people?
That is a dirt parking lot and the area in which the green waste is.
Yeah, so that will stay open, the
Yes.
fence? Okay,
Yes.
thank you very much. I couldn't determine it by a bunch of pictures, I have to ask.
Other questions for the applicant? Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Is there any other public comment on this before we go to council discussion? Okay, council discussion on this. Reminding everybody, this is first reading of a third reading ordinance. And then we will also need to do a motion to delay the preliminary plat until July 5th. So, discussion. Councilor, or Vice Mayor? Sorry.
So, I mean, I do like where you're going with this. I mean, I think it has the potential to be really nice. Unfortunately, I really struggle with with the private, not private difference or delineation. And I don't know how our citizens are gonna be able to know that, oh, by the way, you can't walk on that sidewalk. And, oh, by the way, this is private open space. I mean, I do like, and I think it's great what you're doing, but it's just, it's like, instead of getting both feet in the water, you only have one. You know, I mean, you're almost there, but it's like, just go a little further, make it a gated community, I mean, and put up the right stuff and do it that way, I guess is my comment. And maybe it has to do with the investment, I don't know, but I just see it's like, it's almost really cool, you know, but it's just, it's too confusing for me right now. Does that make sense? At least that's my opinion.
Counselor Schuster.
I understand where you're going. It's tough to tell somebody, okay, you got a great big old park over here, and you can play anywhere and do your frisbee golf, but once you get to this area, it's done. But, here we go. Do we have a lot of people that have been, and I'm gonna use the word trespassing, it's not that vicious, but do we have a lot of people that go on private property without permission and run their dogs and stuff like that, and ride their mountain bikes, stuff like that? Yes, we do. And a lot of people take it for granted that, oh wow, I've been doing this for years, so now I have the right to that private property. And that's not true. I've seen a lot of houses built. I'm living in a house on the face of W Hill, where as a young teenager, I rode my dirt bike and bicycle up and down the roads of W Hill. Am I gonna be really pissed off if somebody does it now to me? Oh, heck yes. So I realize that there is private property that people don't necessarily mean to be trespassing on, but they're on. And right now it isn't fenced, so it's kind of open area to anybody that wants to. But it is private property. So am I gonna say would I love to still be able to go there? Yes. But do I need to respect that term of private property owned by someone else? Yes, I do.
Other discussion from council. Counselor Plegas?
You know, first of all, I think these lots are going to provide something within our community that we have some of, but we really don't have a lot of. I think they're going to be estate-type properties. I think because of the fact that we have an absolutely wonderful park in that area that is narrow and long and doesn't have a lot of tall vegetation on it, there's a concept. When I lived in another part of Laramie, I had wonderful views, long distance, and I had wonderful views in front of me. And there's kind of a concept of what's more important to you, the views right across the street from you or right next to you, or the ones that are 20 miles away. And I have to tell you, they're both valuable. And these lots here actually have the best of both, because you can see the snowies from those lots. The elevation of them is very high, and you will be able to see the snowies, but you'll also have the privilege. And I think it's a greater enjoyment of having the openness of a park in front of you and having that view. But they're going to be of tremendous value to our community. Now, let me say some of the things I wrote down. Trail versus sidewalk, private versus public, rural versus estate, private subdivision versus a public subdivision, inclusion versus inviting people. I'm having trouble with this subdivision because it's a public street, but it's not part of the public. It's basically an oversized driveway that's going to service 11 lots. And that's all it's meant to do from a public standpoint. If the roads were private, and as the vice mayor had said, it's fenced off, I don't have any problem with it at all. I think it works, and I think people have a right to do that. Where I'm having a problem with this is we're responsible for the utilities in the street and down the road. We're responsible for, it's public, it's a public right-of-way, and it's a public street. We're responsible for all that. We're investing in that, and yet it's really not part of our community, or not part of our neighborhood, I should say. So I'm struggling with this whole thing of ribbon paving versus, how do you justify ribbon paving on one of the nicest areas in Laramie versus every other subdivision saying, you will put in sidewalks, you will do this, you will do. I don't know how we can justify that, because in my mind, this isn't rural. This is estates. And in my mind, these lots are going to go for more money than any other lot that's ever been built in Laramie. I'm guessing somewhere between $200,000 and $250,000 per lot. And I may have egg on my face, but I don't think so. I think that's what that's the level of quality that you're going to see within this subdivision, and that's the level of housing you're going to see to substantiate that kind of a price. So this is what I'm struggling with. I may not put an amendment before the floor tonight, but I certainly am not comfortable with the way this is set up. If they want to go private and make the streets private, make the utilities private, be responsible for it all, I'm okay with exactly the way it is. But I think right now I need to process more, and I need to think about it. So, and by the way, I've known Mr. Greaser for many, many years, and I have a lot of respect for both him and his family.
Other discussion by council on this tonight? So I will add a couple of comments, and that is, so I always struggle with any subdivision that comes up that has ribbon paving and doesn't have full streets. I've lived in West Laramie for 15 years, and I don't know if it's just a product of where I live, but I really, really struggle when the city doesn't require fully built streets, because it always seems to come back around to the city at some point in time. I would be concerned about drainage on ribbon paved streets. I really struggle with a private sidewalk where, even if it's a crushed gravel trail, and not allowing public access in there. I think I agree with a lot of what's already been said about the public versus private. I have a separate concern about the city of Laramie not requiring public open space as part of its dedication. It sounds like that's a separate issue that we should have taken a look at a long time ago, but I have a serious concern with that, especially when you're right up against a park. So I too am I'm struggling with this a lot. I haven't formed an opinion yet, but I'm struggling a lot. So again, this is first reading, so any other further discussion before we take this to a first vote? We will have, if we pass this tonight, we'll have 2 other opportunities to discuss this. Councilor Henry?
I want to say that I appreciate the developers' wishes to preserve the natural state of it and not allow bluegrass and planting trees and all that kind of stuff. I do want to say that. I appreciate that.
One of the other things that I also wanted to add is that although it doesn't seem to have been a major concern for anybody tonight, I have concerns about adding more density to the Corthale area without another exit out of that neighborhood. I know it's only 14 lots, but we still struggle down there. And so I really have that concern as well. Manager Tina, did you want to add or clarify anything?
Mayor and Council, I just wanted to quickly note, the gated community discussion has kind of popped up a few times. Just so you know, gating off a public right-of-way is explicitly prohibited in code. A few years ago, we did amendments to specifically prohibit gated communities in Laramie. So just make sure you know that.
Thank you very much. All right, let's go to a vote. City Clerk, can you do a roll call on first reading?
Henry.
Yes.
Hanson, absent. Gabriel.
Yes.
Shumway.
Yes.
Schuster.
Yes.
Paligas.
Yes.
McKinney.
Yes.
Pierce.
No.
Somerville.
Yes.
That's 7 yeses, 1 no, and 1 absent, Your Honor.
That motion carries. So I will go back to Counselor Henry for motion B on the preliminary plat.
Oh, let's see. I move to postpone the Meadows subdivision preliminary plat based on findings of fact and conclusions of law and subject to all staff's recommended conditions until the regularly scheduled meeting on July 5th, 2017, and period.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Counselor Gabriel. Any other discussion needed on this postponement? Everybody understands what we're doing? Okay. Public comment on the postponement? City Clerk, roll call on the postponement, please.
Henry,
Yes.
McKinney,
Yes.
Polikis,
Yes.
Shumway.
Yes.
Schuster,
Yes.
Gabriel,
Yes.
Hanson absent, Pierce,
Yes.
Somerville.
Yes.
That's 8 yeses, 0 nos, and 1 absent, Your Honor.
Thank you, that motion carries. Okay, we are 2 minutes before 9:30, so we will move on to item number 16. Counselor Henry.
One moment, please.
Yes.
I move to approve on second reading ordinance number 1969, adopting and amending codes regulating building and building construction within the city of Laramie. Is that the correct one?
Yes.
Yes. okay.
Yes, that is correct. Do we have a second for that?
Second.
Second by Counselor Polikis. All right, city staff.
Yes, Mayor and Council, this is the second reading, as you'd mentioned, on an ordinance intended to update the city's building codes from the 2012 version to the 2015 version. This is a process that we go through about every 3 years, or give or take a little bit. At the first reading, you'd asked for some additional information on some of the changes that were occurring. I provided that, and I hope that information was helpful. Kind of gives you a taste of what changes are in the codes. I don't know that I have anything really more to add to that discussion, but I am certainly happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Questions? Counselor Henry.
It's really a comment, but I'm going to do it anyway. I appreciate all the details that you gave us. That really helps me to understand the changes.
Thank you.
Counselor Polikis, the
Yeah.
floor is yours.
No, I don't
this
have
was
a lot.
coming.
Carbon monoxide alarms. Am I reading this right? Right now, we require smoke detectors, one in each bedroom, one in each level. And, or is this saying that carbon monoxide also is going to be one in each bedroom, one in each floor?
Mayor and council members, the requirement for carbon monoxide detectors was actually added in the 2012 edition. That was one of the changes there. The change in the 2015 edition has to do with where you put them. That information was sort of left out of the 12 edition. So this is really a clarification of where you put them.
And are you putting them one in each bedroom and one in each level?
That is correct, the same as a smoke detector.
That means each house is going to have about 7 carbon monoxide detectors.
I think what you find is most builders now are using the combo detector, so it's smoke and CO.
Counselor Schuster.
And I really like this person and everything, and I don't want to pick on him, but I have disagreed with a lot of things we've done because we have made it more complicated to build in Laramie. So it's not an offense against you at all. It's just some of these rules are making it more difficult to build in Laramie. Because you talk to a typical builder now, he has to hire an attorney just to be able to build a house now. And I feel that's just a little bit on the ridiculous side, so I'm sorry, I can't do any more amendments to make it just a little bit more difficult yet to build in Laramie with all this detection units and everything like that. Thank you very much.
Any other questions for city staff?
I have a question.
Please.
If we were not to pass this, what would be the repercussions? What would be I think I know the answer, but I'd like to hear it.
Mayor and council, in order for us to stay current with the state statutes for building regulations, we need to have a building code. And it needs to be equal to what the state uses for a building code. I don't know what the repercussions would be for that, but we'd certainly be out of compliance with state statute if we didn't.
I think we're required to I think we'd be required to follow the state requirement, which is what we're passing.
Which would be exactly this code, exactly.
Councilor Gabriel?
Well, that's kind of answer. I mean, these are based on a code that, I mean, we're not just willy-nilly making these things up. I mean, they're there for a reason.
They're national.
And are they national?
They're international.
International, okay.
Which is not the state.
So, I mean, for us to set up here and start to criticize and say, we don't like this, we don't like this, I don't think it's fair, really. I mean, we have to protect the public. The contractors know what the rules are. I think we need to follow a pretty strict standard and pass it. My opinion.
Any other questions from council to city staff?
No.
Okay, thank you. Any public comment? We've lost the public. Right, any other discussion from council on this particular item? Councilor Shumway.
Well, I will say this, it's called the International Building Code, but it really is national. This doesn't go worldwide. It's pretty much set by individuals that determine code for reasonable building standards for the United States, or for at least our area.
All right, any other comments? City clerk, roll call, please.
Henry.
Yes.
Hanson, absent. McKinney.
Yes.
Gabriel.
Yes.
Polikis.
Yes.
Shumway.
Yes.
Schuster.
No.
Pierce.
Yes.
Somerville.
Yes.
That's 7 yeses, 1 no, and 1 absent, Your Honor.
Thank you, that motion carries. And unless I receive objection in the next week, this as third reading will appear on the consent agenda. So if anybody wants to object and pull it, let me know. All right, moving on to item number 17.
Well, we have to vote.
Oh, we do have to vote. It's 9:30, isn't it? Okay.
9:34.
What's item 7?
Counselor Henry.
I move that we complete our meeting as written on the agenda.
Second by Counselor Shumway. This will be a 2/3 vote.
Can I make a comment?
Please.
If it's good with Miss Henry, it's good with me.
She sets the standard, right?
She sets it.
City clerk, vote on postponing, extending the meeting.
Gabriel.
Yes.
Hanson, absent. Henry.
Yes.
McKinney.
Yes.
Polikis.
Yes.
Shumway.
Yes.
Schuster.
Yes.
Pierce.
Yes.
Somerville.
Should I vote no? Yes.
That is 8 yeses, 0 noes, and 1 absent, Your Honor.
All right, so we now have 25 minutes to finish our meeting. On to number 17, Vice Mayor.
So I was busy looking at the cost of real estate and land in Laramie, so I apologize. So let me go here. I move to approve on second reading ordinance, original ordinance number 1968, adding ordinance 9.12.253 and 9.12.255 to Laramie Municipal Code to allow certain controlled substance defendants to qualify for first offender treatment and to make using or being under the influence of controlled substances an offense.
Second.
Second by Counselor Henry. City Attorney,
Yay,
you have been waiting all night.
Go Bob.
I'm glad you gave me this opportunity, Mayor.
At this
You're
decent
welcome.
hour.
At this hour. There is one small change from what we talked about last week. My office caught it wasn't exactly a typo. We wanted to add some words to the first offender ordinance that said there may be only one discharge and dismissal under this section, and we added or similar law with respect to any person. We wanted to make sure that it was clear that if someone in Laramie got treated as a first offender for drug possession over in circuit court, that they wouldn't also be able to be a first offender in our court. But with that, everything else is the same, and it's for the same reasons, so that people charged with controlled substance possession in Laramie municipal courts are treated as they would be treated in a state court.
Questions for the city attorney on this item? All right, thank you. No public? Comments, discussion from council? City clerk, roll call on this ordinance, please.
McKinney,
Yes.
Polikis,
Yes.
Shumway,
Yes.
Henry,
Yes.
Hanson absent, Gabriel,
Yes.
Schuster,
Yes.
Pierce,
Yes.
Somerville.
Yes.
That's 8 yeses, 0 nos, and 1 absent, Your Honor.
Thank you, that motion carries. So, again, third reading, this will be on the consent agenda in 2 weeks. All right, on to item number 18, public comments. Public? Okay. All right, number 19, consideration of future council work session topics. Sounded like we had one earlier, Councilor Polikis?
Yeah, I think, and I don't think it's something we need to do right away, but when we have time, I think it would be good for us to vent our procedure, the problems with it, and perhaps tweak it so that it's more effective in the future. Or the
What
boards.
procedure?
I'm talking about how we, well, if you even bringing in the subject of how we become liaisons, that process, and also how we appoint the committees that appoint the boards and board members and so forth and so on. We don't really have it in the rules. I mean, who determines what 2 people are going to interview for that board, or sometimes 3? I know why we did 3, because when we started putting opposite opinions on those boards, we got into to stalemates. Okay, which is good in a way. So that's what I'm saying.
Didn't we say that we'd discuss that Thursday?
No.
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 No, that was for,
What is it?
Pioneer.
that was Pioneer Canal. Okay, so, for council, do we have support, I assume, from at least Councilor
Yes.
Gabriel for that discussion?
Because I'll just make the comment, I remember being on the planning commission before you, and some people really wanted to make sure who got on there, so we had 4 people at an interview, which was like, holy cow, everybody wants to really determine who's gonna be on there. And, I remember that, so it's a lot of times when you feel it's a really important committee, people wanna show their support for it. I mean, am I ever gonna see that on, the historical railroad depot? No.
So, well, I don't want to get into a discussion
No,
about
I
this
know,
tonight.
I
All we
know.
need to do is put it on the work
Yeah,
session.
let's put it on the work
Let's put it
session.
on the list.
Okay,
I have, and it came up tonight,
Please.
I have another suggestion, and it's
Okay.
down the road. We've had this plan unit development in the books for quite a while. The spectrum of plan unit developments is incredible. I mean, there's literally a street in Laramie that, over there by Fall Creek, that's nothing but, the street was too small to put houses on, so we created a plan unit development for one street so they could put houses on it, or something along that line, all the way to huge developments. So, and this open space, private versus public and all of that, I think we should take a hard look at that and see if it's effectively working for us the way we perceived it to be working years ago.
let me clarify. So, open versus private space is a discussion, and then what would you like to do on the PUDs?
I think just a general discussion of what they're used for, how we've used them in the past, how effective they've been, how we could tweak it. And the open space versus is just one example of how it can be tweaked.
Can we just add to that discussion? I mean, did Derek say, and maybe I didn't hear him, that gated communities are not allowed within the city limits? Is that what he said?
Not on a public street.
But,
Can't have a public
okay,
street
but
gate.
But it could be within the city limits
keep-
on a private street.
keep this in mind, you can have a
Okay,
good
then we're
example.
fine.
You can have a fenced community that's all but gated except the gate.
Pretty much.
In other words, private, no entry, private property, stay out, da-da-da-da-da. You just can't put a fence across your entryway.
So we have good support for that as well, I assume, for that discussion as well? Okay. All right, any other suggestions for work sessions? I will let the council know, just as an FYI, It's some very good discussion about social media and the role of councils and mayors and city governments this last week at WHAM. And I'm still vetting some stuff out, but I would like to bring that back to the council for a discussion, because it seems to be becoming more of an integral part of what we do. So no other work sessions? Okay, the other thing I wanted to let council know under upcoming meetings is you guys did approve to have an additional meeting on Monday of next week. And that is for the discussion that is timely discussion. It's city staff coming back to us with information on the green waste containers and what we want to do with that. So we'll have a meeting on Thursday for the ranch, and then Monday, because it's not a Thursday, Dave. So we'll have a work session on Monday and then a regular meeting on Tuesday.
And so the Monday meeting is at 6:30?
Yes.
And the
that's
Thursday
it.
meeting is at 6?
Yeah, it's at 6. The Monday meeting is at 6:30 because Planning Commission meets in that room, and we wanted to hedge our bets to make sure that they were done before we come kick them out.
So you won't get a break, you'll just
They
come
should
here
just-
right
should
after
just
work
hang
and
out.
just
So
stay.
you won't miss it. From down there to up here?
Yes.
Mayor,
That'll be it, please.
I appreciate your consideration.
Of course. I just didn't want anybody to lop my head off for planning 4 meetings
You
a
would've.
week ago. All right, with that, we'll go to Counselor Schuster for item number 20.
I move we adjourn.
Second.
Second by the Vice Mayor. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. We are adjourned.